Welcome, everyone, to a special Barroom Network show, the 2025 Chicago Bears schedule release. My name is Aldo Gandia. We're going to separate the show into 3 segments. It'll be Greg and I in the first segment, and Danny and Shimon and I in the second segment. And in the third segment, it'll be back to Tooch and myself, and hopefully some special guests will pop in during that final hour. Let's welcome Greg in now. Greg, Gabriel, how are you, my friend?
I am doing good. How about you?
Good. A little late for you, huh?
A little what?
It's a little late for you, 8 p.m.?
Yeah, I'm usually in bed by 8:30.
I was gonna say.
Unless there's a football game on or something good I want to see.
Yeah. So the schedule was released. It's been leaked out throughout the day and really over the last few days. What was your immediate reaction when you saw the full official 17-game schedule?
Well, before I go to that, because I had posted, tweeted, whatever, a few times. I go, you're going to see a lot of schedules coming out. Most of them are BS. Guess what? They were all BS.
Indeed.
The only guy that had things correct was Jordan Schultz, from what I could see. Yeah. And everybody else, I mean, they were so off because I took screen pics of some of these things and who put them out, and they weren't even close to being accurate.
In all your years in pro football, have you ever seen the schedule release be a hotter topic? I mean, the nation is, on the edge of their seats for these release videos and the announcement of stuff. It's pretty wild, huh?
Well, that's the way the NFL does business. A couple weeks ago you had the draft. Now you got the schedule release. What's next? Who knows? Because you've had rookie mini camps. Each team will have a mini camp and OTA, so that'll create some news. But really, now you're getting into a almost dead area until the first week of August when camps open up, end of July for some teams. But it just makes things fun. I remember, when I was working in the league, we got the schedule before the draft.
Okay,
and you didn't get, Twitter wasn't big like X is now. I mean, it was just really beginning. And so you didn't have a lot of these leaks and these phony schedules going out. But back then, Scott Hagel ran PR and Jerry and Ted Phillips would get the schedule about the same time. And it might be 10 in the morning from the league. The league would send it out. And then it would be released later in the afternoon. They didn't have a release show like they had, and that was that, and there was very little leaks, if any. All of a sudden here's the schedule, and but now, and I'm sure they still do it. We saw all this phony stuff over the last few days. I'm sure many teams didn't know a thing. They knew a thing, the ones that were leaked, and there are things that you can have preferences that you give to the league. Right. The league will tell you with what you get. Like, one is when the Chicago Marathon is on, it's a road game. That's a lock. Okay, so I looked up yesterday, when's the Chicago Marathon? Well, it's the week of, October, Sunday the 12th, and the Bears are not even playing on Sunday. They're playing Monday night at Washington.
Okay.
So that's 1 week they're going to be on the road.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into this, baby, because people are you prefer to look at it that way or this way?
That way's better, probably.
Okay. All right. So,
I made a copy of the same one you got. I just printed it.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I hate to be critical of other people's work, But the social media team that comes up with the schedule release video for the Bears, and they do great work outside of that. But the schedule release thing is just, to me, it's the last couple of years has been a clunker. Now I know
I haven't watched it, so I don't even. I'll have to do it now.
Well, you reminded me of it because you were talking about the leaks, and that's basically the parody they're doing. Is that the schedule was released to somebody working at the front office who was supposed to give it to Ben Johnson, but he accidentally sent it to a bunch of different Ben Johnsons, like every Ben Johnson in the Chicago area, and there's like 20 of them. And so there's some levity to it, but I don't know. Anyway,
Thought it was too corny, huh?
I thought it was very, very, very too corny.
Well, that's all right.
Okay, so
I tell you what, I was hoping for not a real tough game, the first game, and actually this one's I like it. And I'll tell you why.
Tell me.
Minnesota's got a good football team, especially on the defensive side. They're playing with a rookie quarterback, and I don't care if it's officially a second year. He didn't play a snap last year, a few downs in preseason, and that was it. So you see, the quarterback on the other team is going to have a lot of pressure on him, and on top of that, he's coming home. He's a Chicago kid.
Yeah,
that's going to prove to be an interesting game, and a fun way to start because it will be JJ McCarthy's first game. Yet it's the Ben Johnson opener, and so they'll be, the fans will be back in the team like no other time because there's no losses or nothing to holler about. So that's the frenzy is gonna be really crazy. But I like the game. I think that's a good game to open up against. Then the next week you got to go to Detroit.
Before you go to Detroit, J2K brings up this brilliant point. Ben Johnson has scored 30 points. I mean, his offenses have every game he's faced Minnesota. Now, hopefully he can continue that with the Chicago Bears, new group of players and so forth. But that is a very, very impressive stat.
Yeah.
I love it. I agree with you. It's a great way to start the season. So take us to Detroit.
Well, Detroit, then it's Ben Johnson's coming home party. Going to where he came. And so that'll be interesting. The Detroit fans are going to want to stick it to him. And, what's interesting, the sideshow, JJ McCarthy in the first game. In this game, it's how's Detroit really going to be? Now, the personnel's not any different. And they added some good players, but their coaching staff is completely revamped.
Yep.
Especially the coordinators. And a lot of key position coaches too. So I think that's going to prove very, very interesting to see how that shakes out.
I do think they can win those first two games of the season, and only because of Ben Johnson's familiarity with the players on the Detroit team. I love that they're starting with two NFC North teams. I don't particularly like what happens on that in 14 and 16, but we'll get to that. Take us to week 3 against the Cowboys.
I think a team probably going through a little bit of a transformation. What's their offensive line going to look like? Two perennial Pro Bowlers retired. Dak is Dak. It's another home game. I'd rather play Dallas here than down there. And so, every game's a winnable game. But, going back to Detroit, for some reason, the Bears match up well against the Detroit Lions. Every game, even with the problems the Bears had with Lewis, every game was a nail biter. A close game with Detroit could have gone either way. So I think where Minnesota, it's been a little bit different. It's been one way or the other, like in each game. But
right,
Detroit, for some reason, every game's close. So I think the Bears matched up well this year. Their offensive line is so much better that's going to help. Now, the other thing, too, is how when they play Detroit, their defensive end, Hutchinson, how good is he going to be? He looks pretty good running around now, but is he, when the pads are on and he's really got to hit people, how good is he going to be? How close to 100% is he going to be?
Kay says that you should never have to go on the road the week after a Monday night game. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, well, you're starting at home, and it's hard to play. Either start off with 2 road games or start off with 2 home games.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what it is. Like I said to you off the air, out of the first 6, 3 are home or 3 are away. Now, what I don't like, just looking at the whole schedule, is there's 3 groupings in the schedule for the Bears where they got 2 road games in a row. Now, granted, the first time that happens is week 4 against Vegas, and then week 6 against Washington, where they're on the road for both. But there is a bye week in between, but it's still going on the road twice in a row. And that happens 3 times throughout the season. It happens week 8 and 9, and it happens week 13 and 14. Yet they only have 1 2-game homestand, and that's week 15 and 16 with the Browns and the Packers coming in. So, I don't like having to go on the road, twice in a row, 3 times during the season. But, hey, you got to play the game. You might as well play the way they give them to you.
Yeah, exactly. Don't fret over it. Just go out there and get the job done. Yeah. J2K says, I wonder how many offensive players will circle that Dallas game as a revenge game versus Flus. You've been around the NFL a long time. Do players do that kind of thing?
It's I think they're going to know Flus better than Flus is going to know the Bears. Now, he knows, how each individual player is, but Flus's defense is Flus's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're going to know how to attack that. And the players are going to know what he's asking the player, what he's asking their players to do. But the thing about, I go back to what Ben said, his opening presser, when he said, you think I'm running the Detroit offense here? You're nuts. We're running the Bears offense. It's, be
tailored for Caleb.
I'm sorry, what?
Tailored for Caleb.
Right. Well, tailored for Caleb, tailored for the skill position guys.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be the same as Detroit. And so, those first couple of weeks, you're going to naturally try to prepare for the Bears by seeing what Detroit did the last couple of years, because that's what you're going to have to go on. Those 3 preseason games, that's not going to show you anything. That's going to be basic football.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let me put this thing back up here. So week 3 at home versus Dallas, and week 4 on the road versus the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, count a win there.
Do you think this team, well, I know I'm just asking you to guess here, but 4-0 headed into the bye, it's definitely, I think, a strong possibility.
I don't know if it's a strong possibility. I look at it this way. You're 2-2, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
But, until we get into camp and see how healthy the team is going into the season, I think it's way too early to start putting W's and L's really next to games.
Yeah, a lot of people have already
made it. That's what they do. You get the schedule and they go, okay, well, I can see us being 9-8. Okay, well, let's it's easy to say on paper.
Exactly.
You could say 10-7 too, or 11-6, but that's not the way it is. I mean, we've seen our injuries affect the team. Last year they started off fast. Ended in a dud.
Yeah. Well, and I just think, from a fan's perspective, you want this team, this 2025 Chicago Bears team, to start out fast, because the roster just gets, the schedule just gets tougher after the bye. This is a tough stretch here going into week 6. Before we go there, Greg, tell me a little bit about, do you dislike, or are indifferent to having the bye so early in the season, week 5?
I'd rather have it a few weeks later. But again, I've always had the opinion of you can't do anything about what you can't control.
Right.
You know, you
Sure.
can piss and moan about it if you want, but it means nothing.
Right.
The bye is when the bye is. I didn't like it last year. It was real late.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't like it. The best part is, you know, like it's week 5. Either 2 to 4 weeks later to me is the optimum time,
Yeah.
closer to mid-season. But
Mhm.
hey, you know, that's probably the first week of buys is week 4, I would think.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at the master schedule for the whole thing, but it might be the first or second week of buys.
I think week 5 this season is the first week of buys. Yeah.
Yeah, so drew a bad number.
All right. Well, so they'll have a long time because their next game back after that bye is in Washington, Monday Night Football. Big attention being paid to this game because, of course, what happened last year with the failed Mary.
Yeah, but again, that was a different team
Mm-hmm.
in that. I mean, yeah, you got the same quarterback, but you got an entirely different offensive line. You've had some more playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Added some guys on the defense. So, and Washington theoretically should be a little bit better. Second year in their system, but I think you go back to that game. Caleb didn't play bad. He did everything to take him down the field and win the game. And then, the defense blew it, or Flus blew it, really, the way he called the defense in that last drive for Washington. So from that standpoint, I think it's going to be a game in which the players are driven to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But, Monday night, national audience, that's really the second in the first 5 games. There's 2 national games. And for a team that, finished with a losing record, that's a lot of national coverage early on in the season.
Sure.
And, I tweeted out last night, I said, just looking at some of the stuff Jordan Schultz put out, and I go, well, it looks like there's a lot of national games. But looks like the league thinks a lot of this team, or thinks they're going to be good the way they've set this up.
Yeah, that just looking ahead, that Week 17 game against San Francisco is on Sunday Night Football. Now that's one of those games that NBC has the ability a couple of weeks or 10 days or so before
they can flex
the game.
it. It could be an afternoon game.
Right, because the 49ers, who knows what type of team, and of course the Bears have been known to disappoint the TV networks with the quality of their play. But let's get back to our sequential numerical look at the schedule. Week 7 at home, the Saints. This is a victory for me.
Well, who the hell's going to play quarterback for him?
Exactly. We don't know what the hell's going on.
I mean, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And you got to protect Soldier Field. You gotta win 4 or 5 of your NFC North opponents, and you've got to win the rest of those home games.
My opinion, you play 6 division games, you have to win 4.
I agree with you. Got to win 4. Got to. Absolutely. We'll look at those division games shortly. So anything about the Saints game other than the quarterback is missing AWOL for the Saints? Anything that comes to mind?
Not really. I mean, yeah, on paper you're gonna pencil in a W, but let's see how that works out. Now that game's gonna have a little bit of meaning to Dennis Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Because he got canned from them. So he's gonna want to win that game. But I'll tell you now, week 8 and 9, those are bitches.
Mm-hmm.
Or potentially are. Baltimore, is going to be tough.
Oh, yes.
And it's in Baltimore. I mean, they're solid football. Who knows what the hell's going on in Cincinnati?
Yeah.
That franchise is just so much different than many others. Now they got a big problem going on with Hendrick still. Who knows if that's going to get resolved? My own personal opinion is it will get resolved. Most of these usually do. It's always about money. But until it does get resolved, it's a distraction. And they've got some pretty good players on that team. But I looked at their draft. I thought their draft was pretty normal as compared to some other teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. So they've got those 2 back-to-back road games, Baltimore and Cincinnati, weeks 8 and 9. Then we zoom ahead, and excuse the typo there. It's because I don't know the date of that week 10 New York Giants game. It's at home, but it's the middle game. It's actually
the 9th.
the 9th. Okay, thank you. So
Sunday the 9th. That's what it shows on that printed schedule that we both have.
Great. Okay. So I'll correct that. And so the Giants are also having their quarterback drama. So this, you know what? So far, I'm looking at these home games. Season opener Vikings, 2 weeks later, the Cowboys, a few weeks later, the Saints, and now the Giants in week 10, the fourth one. All winnable. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love this so far. All right, take us over to week 11. It'll be the second match against the Vikings, but this one's on the road.
Yeah. And most of the time, except last year, the Bears play pretty good in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a tough game. Last year was the game that, Amagaji got told he had to start like 2 days before the game and didn't have any practice and got his rear end handed to him. That's never going to happen again to him, but it was what it was. Interesting game. And again, how good are they going to be with, you can say he's a second-year quarterback, but he's a rookie. He hasn't taken a snap yet. He's had, he can learn. He's learned, but he still hasn't played. And so you're gonna see him twice in the first, 5, 6, 7, 8, twice in the first 10 games. I'd rather get him that early than having to play him like week 16 or something.
Great point. Great point. It's going to take a while for him to gel in that. I mean, I love that head coach over at the Vikings. He's done some marvelous things with.
And I like J.J. McCarthy. I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a really good quarterback. He doesn't have the pizzazz that Caleb has or J.J. has. But number one, he's tough. He's won big games in college. He's won a national championship. There's no question he has talent, but how quick is he going to? I mean, we saw what Caleb went through last year. And he's got a hell of a coach in O'Connell, but it's still a rookie.
Speaking of quarterbacks and coaches, the Steelers, who knows who's going to be playing quarterback?
Right.
Yeah, they'll be in Chicago.
It'll probably be Aaron Rodgers, but by then he'll be out.
Yes, I love your thinking.
Well, no, I mean, really. I mean, when's the last time he had a good season? Like 2020, the COVID year or something like that? I mean, he's gotten hurt a lot. He's the biggest drama queen probably in the history of the league. Why hasn't he said yay or nay yet? Because it's all about him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He'll make the announcement when it's best for him to get the most publicity.
Well, he's going to do it because he's already joined a country club there.
Is that right? I had not heard that.
He joined a country club a week ago. So, it costs money to join country clubs.
Yes, it
granted,
does.
he's got a lot, but
why join a country club in the Pittsburgh area? So true. All right. We are back now into the last third of the season. Week 13 is a Friday night game. It's the Amazon Black Friday game.
That's going to be a tough one.
The champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, on a short week after the Steelers. Yeah, very tough. And
now, speaking of that, it's a short week. Mm-hmm. So people were saying last night, we're going to get the Christmas Day game. And I said privately, I didn't tweet it out. I want to see how this plays out. I was saying to people, there's no way they're going to play Christmas. Why not? It looks like it's a lock. Because that gives them 3 short weeks in the last month of the season, the last 5 weeks of the season. That's not going to happen. The league won't do that to a team.
Even the Bears.
No, they won't. It's a very big competitive disadvantage to do that to a team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So now this part of the season, week 14 through 18, these 5 games, I looked at these 5 games and I said to myself, we could dominate these 5 games and get a big push into the playoffs. If you come away 4-1 or 5-1 or 5-0 in these last 5 games, starting with the Packers
you got to beat
on the
those
road.
cheeseheads twice.
Yep,
And
exactly.
then if you beat them twice, that'll shut them up forever. But yeah, and especially if you win Week 14 at Green Bay, then Caleb's 2-0 up in Cheesetown, and then they got nothing to say. But I'm not a big Love fan. I think he's average. They're going to be playing with. They were very unhappy with their wide receiver core. A couple of the guys who have been starters the last few years, like Dubs and the kid from North Dakota State, they might not even be starting. Hell, maybe won't even be with the team by that time. Reed's the only one who's a local Chicago kid. He's got a job, and then they drafted wide receivers early.
And do you like Golden, their first round pick?
Yeah, I do. I just don't, even though he ran like a 4.30 or 4.32 or something, I just don't think he plays that fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he plays fast, but I think he plays like 4.45 fast, not 4.3 fast. In other words, you're not scared he's gonna beat everybody deep, because you didn't see it on Texas tape.
Yeah. All right, 10 days or so before Christmas, the Bears will play the Browns at home, and that is a gift. The Browns have to be the worst-run franchise in the NFL. So hopefully a big W there against the Browns. Got any concerns about that game other than it's any given Sunday?
The home schedule is pretty good.
Yeah, I love it. I do love it. It's a good year to have season tickets, people. Week 16, the Saturday game will be against the Packers, the second time in 3 weeks. In your experience, Greg, does playing an opponent, so close together, within 2-3 weeks, is that a good thing, a bad thing, or it just kind of depends on the team's chemistries?
Yeah, I think what you just said depends on the team's chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see game plans changing all that much, unless something really didn't work.
Yeah.
But I mean, they'll be a little different up in Green Bay than they are at home.
Yeah, right.
I think, if Caleb wins up there, I think the first thing he should do is own you guys. just throw it back a little bit.
Absolutely. 3 of those last 4 games are at home. So you got the Browns week 15, the Packers week 16. The only road game then is that Sunday night football game that could potentially be flexed, but hopefully it won't be. And the Bears can go to San Francisco and win a big game there. This 49ers team is in transition, Greg. So this could be a very, very winnable game.
Yeah, but they are. In fact, they got rid of the one wide receiver. Ayuk may be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically redoing the defensive line. It's going to be a different team, but they got a damn good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They got lucky, last pick in the damn draft, and he's a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Unbelievable. And then we finish things up week 18 against the Detroit Lions. Hasn't been announced whether that's a Saturday or Sunday game, at least not the last time I looked. Is it on their official one?
I mean, you'll probably find that out about December 15th or something.
Yeah. Even on the official one, it says Saturday or Sunday, January 3rd.
Yeah,
or
so
4th.
that's a flex game. Depending if it's not important, it's going to be Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not important, rather, it might be Saturday. If it's real important, it'll be Sunday.
Right. Okay. So a schedule like this, Greg, is, I look at the schedule, and the one thing that really sticks out to me is that final third of the season. If the investment that has been made into the offensive and defensive line is to pay off, it will pay off the most against the Eagles, Packers, Browns, 49ers, and Lions, because hopefully everybody's still healthy and now is working more cohesively as a unit. You buy that?
Well, I mean, hell, you got the odds with you this year, because they've gotten hurt so damn much the last few years that you got to think that it's going to be going their way this year, but who the hell knows?
Right. Here we are, May 14th, and Tooney has not inked an extension deal. I know it's nowhere near time to be worried about stuff like that, but can you describe how you feel about the Toney contract negotiations?
It'll get done when it's going to get done. That's they've exchanged offers, but a couple weeks ago, people, it's going to happen within the next couple of days. I said, no, it's not. No, there's things on this one I know a little bit more than most people do. And nothing has changed since then. And put it this way, when the parties decide they want to get it done, they'll get it done. It's not that hard to do.
Indeed.
But there's really no hurry now.
Yeah. It might. Could they be potentially waiting on a deal to see if Trey Hendrickson is available, and they want to make sure there's money to pay Tooney and Hendrickson?
Number one, I think that's a pipe dream.
Okay.
And here's what part of the problem is, and you got to read between the lines. Hendrickson is looking for a long-term deal on the other side of 30, probably closer to $35 million a year. Okay. So he wants to be one of the highest paid edges in the league, and rightfully so. He led the league in sacks, I think, last year. But I get Cincinnati's side. Dude's going to be 31 in December. So, for the final few games of the year, he's 31. And why would you give a 31-year-old defensive lineman a 5-year deal?
Right.
So, and I never saw it until the other day. I think he said it in one of his quotes when he had that press thing. Well, they're talking short term. I want long term. Yeah, well, you're going to be 31 during the season, dude. And 31, I get where he's coming from, but here's reality, Aldo. He's got no leverage. He's under contract.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they can bleed, and the Browns could be tough people now. And they could bleed this thing dry. He'll get fined for not showing up for minicamp. And the stuff he said the other day, well, now it's getting personal. All that is just talk.
Yeah.
It means nothing. It's negotiate. We've seen it. We've seen it with Deebo Samuel last year. You see it with guys every single year. It's talk. It means nothing. It's always show me the money.
Yeah.
When I got, I think I've said this before, when I got divorced the first time over 20 years ago, my attorney said when I was going into it, he goes, I don't care what she says. I don't care what you say. I don't care what her attorney says. I don't care what I say. It's about one thing, the fucking money.
You got a good one. You had a good one there.
And this guy's one of my best friends. So I talk to him. Something always comes up and he goes, it's not about the fucking money, is it? I mean,
that's funny. A quick question before we do a transition here. Danny's, I'll bring him in just a second here. J2K wanted to know, when the Bears play in Baltimore and then in Cincinnati, will they stay away from Hallis Hall between those games and practice elsewhere? No. I agree with you.
First of all, it's not that far.
Unless the weather to Chicago is really bad. Yeah, they're flying back.
I mean, they had to go out to the West Coast 2 weeks in a row. Then you'd think about staying out there so you don't have to travel back and forth.
Right.
But going to Baltimore is an hour and a half flight. Going to Cincinnati's an hour flight. Big deal.
Yep. Greg, I got a question for you. When this gentleman here was your student, did you flunk him?
Oh, God, yeah.
It's funny. I think Greg and I got the same divorce lawyer.
Well, they all think alike, Dan.
That is wild.
It's all about the money.
It's about the money.
It's all about the money.
Indeed.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Doing great. You're being greeted in the chat room as we speak. Greg, can you stick around a little longer, or
just for a couple of minutes because I told you what's all going on.
Well, give Danny the headline of what you think the schedule feels like, looks like, and then we'll dive in with him and get his thoughts.
Well, what I don't like, Danny, is and I don't know if you've been listening, you got 3 times during the course of the season back-to-back road games, which can be tough.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you can't control the schedule. So you got to play the games the way they give them to you. So it is what it is. Get ready for them, play the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. The back-to-back, 3 back-to-backs. Was it last year or 2 years ago? They had 3 away games right after each other. So I think at least the 3 games away games right after each other. But that it was something I noticed, as well as the early bye week. I tend to not like the early bye week.
Well, it's happened before, but this past season we had one of the late ones.
Yep.
So it's just the way it goes. I think they try to even it up with everybody through the course. So, if you got a late one last year and an early one this year, next year they're going to be right in the middle. So
yeah. And don't coaches usually tend to love that middle to late bye week? Because that way,
I think the late is hard because you're going training camp into the season for a long period, and then before you get a break. Now they had a Thursday night game last year early on, so you had that mini bye that helped a little bit. But hey, this is the way they doled it out. There's nothing you can do about it. You've got to prepare your team because they're going to go how many? That's 4 games. They're going to go 13 games and 13 weeks in a row. They're playing a football game, and that's not easy. But hey, nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, and the one thing I noticed, I don't know what the consensus was, but like right away, they're Ben Johnson. You're right away. You're in the division. So if you win those first 2 games, man, you're sitting pretty in that division 2-0. But in the flip side, if you lose those first 2 games, some of that early season buzz could be like, oh, what's going on here, blah blah. But the one good news is that Ben Johnson knows his division. He knows these 2 defensive coordinators. They're not new to him. Obviously, there's new players, so on and so forth. But I think that's the one thing I do like is the fact that, he's familiar with the defensive coordinators he'd be facing in Minnesota and Detroit. And I know Kelvin Shepard is new defensive coordinator, but he was on that staff. So it's pretty much, I believe they're going to run the same system. So it's big. I mean, I think those first 4 games, if you get off to a 3-1 start, I think that now you go into that bye after 3-1. I think now you got some momentum and now you can carry on throughout the season.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. The whole key is staying healthy. We know that, and they haven't been able to do that in God knows how long. And you got to keep your offensive line healthy, your defensive line healthy, and your quarterback healthy. You do that, you got a chance.
By the way, everybody say hi to my niece Lauren Rose, who joins us in the chat room. She says she loves
Lauren
to borrow,
Rose.
but
Hey, Lauren.
I think she likes you guys much more than she likes me because she's always saying, "Hey, when are Danny and Greg going to be on together?" All right, Greg. Thanks very much for hanging out with
guys.
us. Good luck with all the work you've got. I know you got a kind of a project going on at home.
Big one.
Good luck with that, brother.
Okay, buddy. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Danny Shimon, how are you, man?
Hanging in there. Just just finished watching some UDFA tape right now, and just jump right into the schedule. So we get ready to pop some videos out on Shimon Draft Scout. As you see right there. Thank you, Aldo, for putting it up there. On some of these UD undrafted free agents that the Bears signed. There are a couple of them that kind of intrigue me. I want to share with the rest of our audience.
Before we get into the schedule, can you give me one name of a player of these UDFAs that you've already done the work on and you say, wow, this guy, because PFF did something on that edge rusher, Carlton, I believe.
Carlton, yeah, from Cal.
They really like him a lot. Yeah. Have you done him yet?
Yeah, I peeked into him. I haven't done a full report on him, but he's got the length. He's got solid size. A little bit stiff in the hips. More of a linear player. So if you line him up wide, I think you give him a straight path to the quarterback. I think he can help you there. But I think he's more of a developmental type where he's got the size, he's got the length. Had 9 sacks last year at Cal, so he was very productive. So I think he's a guy that to keep an eye on. But the guy that really Tysheem Johnson, the safety from Oregon, really. intrigues me. He's
good.
He's a kid that a little undersized, but went a 4.5 40 at the Oregon Pro Day. He's got good athletic ability. Looks like he's one of those like pesky, undersized, defensive backs. Maybe he's a guy that can make his way on the roster as a special teamer and then eventually get in some of the nickel sub packages. So Tashim Johnson from Oregon played 2 seasons, first coach seasons at Ole Miss, transferred to Oregon the last 2 years there. So I think he's a guy that to me has got a real sneaky chance. And the next guy I'm looking at is Eccles, the linebacker from North Carolina.
Yeah, I've been doing not tape study, but reading up on Echoes. He's got a great story to share and could be a dark horse to make this team as a linebacker or at the very least on the practice squad. All right, let's pop up the schedule here. We'll do it in the calendar format that I'm well renowned for. The orange blocks here are the road games, Danny. And when I was talking to Greg, I said, the home schedule looks really like we could sweep all of our games at home. They look so winnable to me. But it's these road games that have me worried. Do you get that impression too?
I'm not as confident as you are about the home games. I mean, obviously, Minnesota is, I know they have J.J. McCarthy making his first career start. Most likely week 1. But remember a couple of years ago, Jordan Love was making his first career start, week 1, came in here, Soldier Field, and the Packers, with Justin Fields, and there was a big momentum in that as well. And, kind of, the Bears wet the bed there. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Minnesota's a tough team. So I'm saying Cowboys are, again, coming off a disappointing season, but Dak was hurt. He's going to be back. I do expect Matt Eberflus to do something with that defense and or help show up that interior, that defensive line, and show up that run defense. So I think they're going to be a tough opponent. Obviously, I think the Saints and Giants are going to be teams that, they should beat, Steelers, Aaron Rodgers could be that quarterback. And obviously, we know the history there, Aaron at Soldier Field, and how he thinks he owns the Bears and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So, that's another quality opponent there. And we can go from there on. You could probably say, they should have a better time or easier time of it. But, there are going to be some tough games there at home. But, for me, like the toughest stretch is going to be that stretch where they go Minnesota, on the road, and then home against Pittsburgh, and then on the road against Philly, and on the road against the Packers. I mean, those 4 games there, those are 4 playoff quality opponents, right? So we'll see how that goes. I think if the Bears are in the mix or on the periphery of playoff contention, if you will, that 4-week stretch could really make or break if they end up making a final push towards that playoff. But just like Greg was saying, it's the key thing is getting through the preseason healthy. The one thing I would recommend, hopefully we'll see what Ben Johnson does, and that's something that the previous regime did, and I was not a fan of it, although I believe you were not a fan of it as well, was don't play your damn starters. Play your starters, get them reps. It's a new scheme, it's a new system. Hopefully Ben Johnson doesn't do the old, we're gonna rest our starters and not playing for the preseason, because they need to get the reps in there, and that's what I hope he does. And then come out prepared, come out ready to play. Like I said, the good news is that with the 2 division opponents, Ben Johnson being in the division the last couple of seasons, he's familiar with the defensive coordinators or at least the personnel on both those teams. So he's not coming in with a team that he hasn't faced before, a whole new coaching staff or whatnot. So I think that's something that could play potentially in the Bears' advantage there. But yeah, man, the schedule maker said, all right, Ben Johnson, you came out here, talking about, all this stuff in terms of, let's see what you can do here. So, right away, bang, Minnesota and Detroit. So, but that could be a good thing, right? If you come out 2-0, now that confidence in this young team is built, and his coaching staff, it's growing, it's building, and now you can carry football. For me, it's a game of momentum. You can carry that week in and week out. So, hopefully that they come out, 2-0, and then just can carry out through that first four games. For me, if they're 3-1 after 4 games, I think we're in store for a pretty good season moving forward. Aldo, are you there? Oh, well, I wonder if we lost Aldo.
No, we didn't lose.
Oh.
I was muted as always. Man, I've been piling up the mute penalties here. But I did want to touch on what you said earlier about the preseason schedule and playing the starters. Courtney Cronin posted the preseason schedule. Week 1, the date has not been determined, but the opponent is going to be the Miami Dolphins. And then on the 17th, versus Buffalo Bills at Soldier Field. That to me is the game where the starters have to go 3 quarters. And then week 1 and week 3 against the Kansas City Chiefs, you're looking at maybe one quarter and then a half in the game against the Chiefs. You agree with that?
Yeah, Miami, maybe if you want to give the starters a series, that's fine. But I agree. But Buffalo, that week 2, that now has, since they went to a 3-game preseason schedule, that's become the traditional. Remember when the UFC have to have 4 games? That third game was that quote unquote, like practice game,
right,
if you will. So I think that week 2 at Buffalo, that's a quality opponent. Or I'm sorry, Buffalo here in Chicago, that's a quality opponent. I think you go at least a half with your starters there against that team. And then we'll see if there's any sort of practice sessions in between teams. I know a lot of teams staffs like to utilize those in the week practice sessions as kind of mini games, if you will, as well. So we'll see how that's there. But yeah, in terms of the KC game, if that's the one where you want to rest your starters, I'm okay with that. It's the last preseason game, and you don't want anybody to get hurt. Plus, you have a lot of guys on the roster trying to make the roster, give those guys ample playing time. So I'm good there. But I would play my starters first game, at least a minimum of a series, possibly 2. If you want to play more, I'm okay with that as well. And then Buffalo game, at least a half, like you said, although maybe even 3 quarters, I'm good with that as well. And then if you want to rest them against KC, I'm okay there too.
Yeah, given this might work out well, given that you've got the bye in week 5, I don't then mind really putting some stress on the veterans during the preseason schedule, because they're going to have a week in a month into the season. They're going to have a week off to replenish their bodies. Now, you got to be careful, of course, because then you've got, 13 weeks of football after that. And so, that's when you start to ease up, I think, on the practices and stuff. I know that Ben Johnson has been kind of talking about being violent and being tough and really getting callous for the season was a term that Matt Eberflus used last year, and I heard a lot of other coaches use it. So it's kind of like an interim in vogue, I should say. But hey, this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with these weeks off. You're dealing with new players trying to gel with one another. I'm with you, man. Work them during the preseason, and then promise them that week 5 they're going to be able to relax and get ready for that second part of the season, which is going to be really, really tough. Really tough.
And plus, with the CBA, they're limited in terms of how many times they can hit and be physical during the season as well. So you get those quality reps in the preseason. Again, I know you're a new staff. You want to come in. You want to set a culture. You want to make sure players know in terms of this is how we're going to do it. Moving on forward here with this new staff. And I think you do that in the preseason. And like I said, yeah, I would love to see that. That always bothered me the last couple of years when the starters never played. And I think it just kind of lingered on into the opening week, right? And we saw a sloppy play on offense, even on defense at times. It was just the whole thing was discombobulated. I just feel like get them out there, get them lathered up. I'm not saying playing full halves, but at least that Miami game series or 2, the Buffalo game at least a half, and then you can rest them for that KC game. But yeah, you got to play your starters.
I would say the majority of NFL great quarterbacks played a lot of preseason football, starting with Tom Brady. Tom Brady would play 3 of the 4 games and would see a lot of action. And then Patrick Mahomes is another one that's continuing that tradition on. So let's not be afraid of injury. Let's go get out there and get these guys the necessary work that they got to get in. All right.
This is a copycat. I'm sorry. This is a copycat league, right? And I think it all started with Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay started the whole thing where he rested his starters and they didn't play much in the preseason. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, and Reese started doing it. And some of the other coaches started doing it. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, the great coaches are doing it. I'm going to do it as well. So I think that's a trend that needs to kind of be bucked here, if at least for Ben Johnson. Again, new coaching staff. You want to set the precedent. You want to set the culture of this football team, how it's going to be moving forward. And I would love to see him. I hope he plays the starters in the preseason.
Right. I think the difference between McVay and a guy like Nagy, because you and I were out to Bears camp when Nagy was the head coach, it was a country club type of atmosphere. Here he is playing quarterback and throwing deep passes. That I don't think Ben Johnson's going to be doing that. Ben Johnson's going to be maximizing every minute that he has with those players. He's going to be tough on them, and it's not going to be, you got a winning season in 2018, and now you're giving everybody lots of breaks in preseason. You can't do that. Danny, I want to share with you the NFC North schedule that the Chicago Bears have. Week 1, Vikings. Week 2, Lions. Week 11, Vikings. Week 14, Packers. And then week 16, Packers. And week 18. To me, Danny, you got to win. Greg was saying 4 out of these 6 games. And I want to push them to win 5 out of the 6 games, and maybe even the Mike Ditka 80s Bears would often, relatively speaking, would sweep the NFC North opponents. And I am of that school. You got to dominate your division. What are your thoughts when you look at this division schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I would love. I think 5 out of 6 would be great. That would set you up to really take charge of this division, especially with that division play. I mean, if we go back and take a look, and I hate doing this, like going back and revision history or whatever you want to call it, but they should have beaten Green Bay twice last year if you think about it, right? They should have beaten Minnesota once last year. They should have beaten Detroit at least once, last year. So technically, they could have won more games in the division last year, and that was the Bears under a staff and where there was just dysfunction all over. So if you come in, Ben Johnson, you set the culture, you talk about everything, you get off on a good start here. You got to win your division. That's the important thing. You win your division, you get into the playoffs, and you probably get a home game. So that's where you got to concentrate. You got to hammer that in there and say, first 2 games, division opponents. You go 2-0 in division. That is a great start. Not only to the Ben Johnson coaching, career or whatnot, but just for the team itself overall in the division. Like I said earlier, you get that confidence going in a relatively young team, and now they believe they could win games against their divisional opponents. And next thing you know, you probably have some wins here and there against the Giants, against the Saints, against the Browns, some of the other teams, and you have you're out to 8, 9, possibly 10 victories. So very important. Believe you might be on mute there, buddy.
That's 2 in one show. Damn it. I agree with Skeletor here when he says Love is overrated. I think that Love is a good quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to approach the Favre Rodgers type of quarterbacking that Green Bay is accustomed to. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big year for Jordan Love, to believe it or not. I mean, I think obviously that first year, I think he was overhyped and overblown. Now he had a great playoff performance against Dallas and pretty much versus San Francisco. But last year coming obviously that first week 1 injury against the Eagles kind of set him back a little bit. He just never seemed to recover. And then he had like a little period there where he looks like started making some plays again. But I think this is a year where I think there's a lot of pressure on Jordan Love in terms of proving that he is that next in line, if you will, that of the Green Bay quarterbacks, right? So I think this is going to be a season where there's a lot of pressure that a lot of people are going to be looking at Jordan Love and saying, all right, are you the real deal? Well, what's going on? Because there was a lot of up and down so far in his playing career.
Indeed. And one of the things about his quarterbacking style, Danny, that I feel the Bears should double the amount of interceptions they have against him when he plays. He just tends to really lob the ball up in many situations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's got a fastball that's going to scare any defensive back. I see a lot of turnovers coming in his career as more and more defensive coordinators and defenses, particularly the backfield, start to become accustomed to what he does.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he had like was 12 or 11 or 13 receptions last year, if I'm not mistaken. Someone double check that for me. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure like arm strength wise, he's got a pretty good arm. He's got a quick release, but he does put the ball in harm's way. I mean, he's a guy who does take chances with the ball, and you'll see those times where there's 2 or 3 guys there. Heck, last year that there was a play here in Soldier Field where there was a goal line situation. He threw the ball up no man's land, and the Bears picked him off in the red zone. So I mean, he's careless with the ball at times, and that's where with Dennis Allen now, the whole Tampa 2 stuff is gone. The teams have the book on how to beat Tampa 2. You beat them in the middle of the field. Now with Dennis Allen coming, he's talking about pressing, disrupting receivers at the line of scrimmage, disrupting those releases, giving your defensive linemen a little bit more time for them to maybe get after the quarterback. There aren't guys coming wide open right off the snap. So that's something hopefully we'll see there transpire here. But yeah, I mean, I think just be aggressive, attack him, put pressure in his face. And I think Jordan Love will give you an opportunity to make a play on a football and come away with a couple turnovers.
Yeah, man, I saw a story about Elton Jenkins, who they're moving to center this season, and has not participated in the offseason workouts here, so they might have an issue going on there. More issues, the better for Green Bay.
I think he wants a contract extension. He's a Pro Bowl player. I think he's played guard, he's played tackle for them. As you said, they're moving him in center, and I think they're trying to pay him as a center. And he's like, hey, no, I've been a Pro Bowl tackle, Pro Bowl guard. I'm going to be paid, like either guard or tackle money. And they're like, oh, you're going to be playing center. I think that's where that's what they're butting heads there.
That's funny. All right, this is the Packers schedule. I just want to take a quick glance at it. They're starting with some tough teams. The Lions. Let's see. The Dark is home, so they're at home against the Lions and Commanders to start things off. So they could start off 0-2. Very, very likely.
I'm not a high on the Commanders this year. So whatever their win total is, I'd go low on that. If you're a betting person. I think last year a lot of things went their way, and we know football things don't always go your way year after year. I mean, look at the Bears and Nagy in 2018. All the trick plays, everything, all the bounces went the Bears' way seemingly that year, and then since then, obviously, it's gone the opposite way. So I just think Washington, they made some improvements, in terms of Deebo Samuel and some playmakers on that offense. And again, Larry Tunsil is a guy that's hailed as still seen as a great tackle, but he's on a decline in my opinion. So I don't think he's what he was in his prime in terms of a left tackle. So I think Washington could be a game that the Packers will go in and win there. Obviously Detroit at home, this is going to be a huge a test case here for Detroit. And like I said, 2 new coordinators. Kelvin Shepard was a linebackers coach, takes over defensive play calling. And Chad Warren, takes over in terms of as an offensive coordinator there for Ben Johnson, obviously. But when the hire was made, when they replaced Ben Johnson with Warren, Dan Campbell said that he was going to get more involved in the play calling and in the offense, this year to kind of help the new offensive coordinator. So again, same players, same offensive line, which obviously is the biggest benefactor there, but. Don't kid yourself. A new play caller will make a difference, in my opinion. 2 new coordinators will make a difference, right? A couple of years ago, when the Eagles went and just lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, they lost both their coordinators to head coaching jobs, and then you saw Jalen Hurts take a tumble in terms of his productivity next season. Even the defense, took a hit, and then obviously then they rebounded and hired, their coordinators that just left them now, and Kellen Moore and obviously Vic Fangio. So I think that's going to be huge for Detroit. See how they start off with the new coordinator. So Green Bay has a chance. You said 0-2. I think they have a very good chance of going 2-0. To be honest with you as well, depending on how they start off there as well. So
I can see that too. I think roster wise, both the Lions and the Commanders have a better roster than the Packers, but I could be proven wrong. I mean, Matthew Golden is a key figure for the Packers this season. If this guy, the first round wide receiver, comes in and starts a instant connection with Jordan Love, then all of a sudden we could see a Packers team that will be contending. Now look at the tail end of their schedule, Danny, starting with week 12, Sunday November 23rd against the Vikings, going into the Lions on Thanksgiving, the Bears, the Broncos, the Bears again, the Ravens, and then the Vikings again to finish the season. They're going to have a uphill climb in that last part of the season.
Yeah, and don't even bypass the Bengals in week 6, right? That's that Bengals week 6. Then they go at Arizona. Arizona should be a tougher team, especially at Arizona. And then they're going to Pittsburgh, and we know how the Steelers, typically are always tough at home. Yep. So I think that's another stretch where that you can see that them possibly maybe losing a game or two there as well. And then obviously the Panthers, they're coming to Green Bay. Panthers should be better than what they were the last couple of seasons, but obviously the proof is in the pudding. We'll see how that actually turns out. So, but yeah, that last stretch you highlighted, Aldo, and also that week 6 to week 8, Bengals, Cardinals, and then Steelers stretch could also be a tough one for Green Bay.
Good stuff, Danny. Let's take a quick look at the Lions' schedule. And boy, they came up with a really ugly graphic. It's hard for me to read this stuff. But they're starting against the Packers and then the Bears and the Ravens before they get an easy opponent, the Bengals. And then back to tough opponents, Bengals, Kansas City, and the Bucks. That's a tough schedule leading up to their bye week, week 8, right?
Yes, that is tough schedule. And if you go over further on, you're right. The November 27th, I think that's week 13. It is very hard to read with Green Bay again. I believe that's at Detroit, but then you got Dallas coming in, and we talked about Dallas, in terms of what they may or may not be. Dallas is one of these wild card teams, right? They got the talent. Just picking up George Pickens now, obviously CeeDee Lamb, and with the healthy Dak Prescott, the offensive line is a little bit of influx. They've invested a lot of draft capital the last couple off seasons in the offensive line. Obviously, Tyler Booker was their first round pick this year. So, and we talked about the Pickens acquisition there. They got some weapons on offense, and if Eberflus can turn on defense around, until Dallas is a team that could surprise a lot of people, right? And I'll talk obviously in the Rams, Sean McVay and the Rams are always tough, and then the Steelers, and then Minnesota, and then obviously finish off here with Chicago. So I think that is a tough stretch there as well when they finish off their season too for Detroit.
Yeah, it's I've been just pushing some buttons on social media with some Lions fans because they're and they should be very confident that they're going to have a great season, but I don't know, man. There's just too many changes there. Greg was talking about it in the first half hour.
Right. It's huge when you lose your coordinators. It's very huge. If you can put that up real quick, the line schedule, there was one more thing I wanted to highlight with there. So after their bye week, they got Minnesota, which I believe is on the road, correct?
Yep.
And Washington, and then Philadelphia. So, and then only the Giants, if you think the Giants are going to be an easy opponent. But if you just say take away the Giants, look at those. You got Minnesota, Washington, Philadelphia, Green Bay, Dallas, Rams, Steelers, Vikings. I mean, you have a who's who in terms of playoff teams from last year, right? So I think only teams that in that stretch that didn't make the playoffs last year were the Giants, the Cowboys, and obviously the Bears at the end of the season there. So that's a tough stretch after their bye week. And then you mentioned earlier they head into the bye week facing the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers. So this is a pretty tough schedule.
Yeah, it's a very tough. And by the way, I was wrong when I said the Vikings. That game will be in Detroit, right? Their Week 9 game right after the bye. But nonetheless, that, like Danny says, that's a tough stretch. They got a tough stretch going into the bye, and a tough stretch coming out of the bye, and a tough stretch to finish the season. The Lions could be that one team that could, potentially lose 5 or 6 more games than they did last season.
Don Berg's going to need a lot of burner accounts.
That's right. I'll allow him back in the bar room if that happens. I want to share with you the Viking schedule, Danny, but it is the most difficult thing to read I've ever seen a graphic artist create. Whoa. I mean, what is this? I don't know where to start. I think upper left-hand corner with the Bears, and then go downwards: Atlanta, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Philadelphia. That's the first third of the season.
That is so confusing.
That is the J2K is the graphic artist. Please give you a review of this. Me as a producer, I say no way.
That is horrible.
Back to the drawing board. That is really ugly looking. But let's take a look at the quality of opponents here. To me, it almost seems like they got the 5th place schedule. Playing Atlanta in their 2nd game of the season. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, of course, are tough, but Cleveland, I mean, they've got some winnable games here in that first stretch of 5 games. The Atlanta, Cleveland, and of course they're thinking about beating the Bears as a divisional opponent. So they may not have it easy against Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, but maybe not too bad. What do you think?
See, okay, so I think Atlanta is going to be a sleeper team in NFC South. I mean, obviously, Michael Penix coming into his 2nd season there. They got a ton of weapons on offense, obviously with Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts and Drake London and obviously Darnell Mooney. And then obviously now defensively, they've invested on the defensive side with, those 2 first-round picks, Jalen Walker and James Pierce. So I think Atlanta could be a sneaky team, in terms of competing in the NFC South. So I don't think they're that big, they're going to be that easy of an opponent. So, and obviously then you go with Cincinnati and then Pittsburgh. Obviously Cleveland will be that, that if you had to guess today, it would be probably the easiest of their first 4 opponents. Hopefully the Bears are not going to be, a pushover in week 1. But I think Atlanta, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, tough. Is that Philadelphia? That's or that's at home versus Eagles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Eagles, and then you got Chargers. That LA Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. And you get the Lions then, and then Baltimore. So I mean, yeah, they've got a pretty I think formidable schedule there as well. Now their tail end of their schedule is a little less daunting than some of the other ones that we've seen. Right, starting with Seattle. Yep. Again, Washington, I don't think Washington's going to be as great as they were last year. That just means, in my opinion, obviously Dallas could be hit or miss. The Giants, I don't think they'll be that, great shakes. And obviously they got Detroit and Green Bay. So I think, going to that first 4 weeks, they could start off easily 2-2 or 1-3, depending on how they do versus the Bears that week 1. But yeah, it's first of all, this is very hard to read. Second of all, I think it's a schedule that could surprise you here and there. Yep. But I just think their second half it looks like a little bit easier if I had to guess. Again, these are all just guesses, right? So then some of the other, and then the Lions or the Bears or even like the Packers.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot, of course, depends on how the NFC North division opponents, the quality of football they're going to offer up, because the Vikings finished with Detroit and Green Bay. But the other thing, I don't know if you mentioned this, Danny, I may not have heard it. That Cleveland game is in London right before the bye. So that's going to make it, so again, to start the season for the audio podcast people, it's the Bears, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and then Cleveland in Cleveland before the bye. And then, like Danny said, they go to the Eagles and Chargers and so forth. So that London game for them could put stress on them, given that they're playing an inferior opponent in the Browns.
Thank you for reminding me. That is, if I'm not mistaken, they have back-to-back outside the country games. So is that they do?
You're right. Dublin.
Pittsburgh is Dublin, and then is it Cleveland? Is it Cleveland they play? Or?
Cleveland and London, and then Pittsburgh and Dublin. Yes.
Yeah. So that's back-to-back. International games. So that is to me is a huge. I thank you for reminding me that, because that was something I saw and I'm like, whoa, like that is weird to have back to back. Because typically, remember, if you do an international game, the following week is a bye week for you, but they're going back to back international. So I think that's going to be a tough stretch. So if they get off to a 1-2 or even 0-3 start, and now you go back to back international games, that could be, and with a rookie quarterback. So I think that this is going to be a tough part of the schedule for Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing tougher than that schedule is reading that fucking schedule. This is so tough.
Did J2K chime in on that?
Yes, he did. He said that the design of, they're taking off, and I didn't know this until you pointed it out, but that they're trying to mimic tattoos. But the design in terms of communicating the schedule, he gives it an F. The creative start of it was good, but in terms of how effective it is in communicating, it's a failure. When
I first saw that, I was like, "What is that?" And there's a Minnesota Vikings logo in the middle of this. I was like, "Wait, who is that?"
Yeah, it
kind of blends right in with like
right
logos. Yeah, it's like
it's. I give the third grader who came up with this a lot of props.
You give A for effort, right? You get A for effort, but
absolutely,
but F for delivery.
This is the Bears, how they did it. And you know what? It's not going to be super creative, but it gets the job done, man.
Plain and simple. We're not squinting. We're not like guessing. You know, we know which one the home games are. We know where the road games are. You know, sometimes just, you know, what's that saying? Keep it simple, stupid. Just don't mess it up by making it all fancy, you know.
Exactly. Let's take a look at the schedule here and tell me what your thoughts are about these last 3 out of the last 4 games are at home. At home, December 14th against the Browns, and then the Packers, December 20th. They do have to travel all the way to California to play the 49ers in what currently is scheduled as a Sunday night game, and then they come home to play the Lions either on Saturday or Sunday. Does that strike you as it being particularly tough to close the season or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to predict, right? Because obviously, you know, how are they playing? You know, who's dealing with injuries? Are the Bears healthy? Are the Packers healthy? You know, obviously, I like the fact that the Packers are coming here in December. As the last couple of years, I think we've been going there to Green Bay, so they come here there, and you know, obviously, we don't expect the Browns to be a playoff caliber team, but you know, because they have that quarterback situation where we're not sure what they're doing there, but you know, they're a talented team, right? So it's all going to depend on health, and that's why it's so hard to kind of predict and say, oh, you know, like this game should be an easy victory, this game should be a hard game. So you know, we'll just say, like, based off of previous records or previous knowledge of these teams, you know, I think the Browns should be a victory game. Packers, I think that'll be a tough game, but I think that Bears could, you know, pull it out. They almost pulled it out last year, as we mentioned earlier. At 49ers, again, depending on, you know, that team's been snake bitten the last couple of years in terms of injuries. So, you know, is Nick Bosa and are those guys playing? Is Brock Purdy standing up? You know, they've made some losses in terms of, you know, of their roster as well. So how do the 49ers look? But you know, going back to the history of the Bears, I remember they've always struggled going out to San Francisco. You know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the last victory that I remember the Bears actually winning in San Francisco was when they first opened up that new stadium. And I believe Mark Trestman was the head coach, and Cutler was the quarterback, and Brandon Marshall had a great game. I think that was the last one, if I'm not mistaken, the Bears actually won in San Francisco. So going out to the West Coast has always been a bugaboo for the Bears, especially going out to the 49ers. So you know, we can just assume that maybe that's going to continue this year. So, you know, if they go 2-2 on those final 4 games, you know, that'll be good. You know, beating the Browns, maybe beating the Packers. We'll see what happens with the Lions. You know, are they playing for anything? You know, are the Bears playing for anything? So that's going to be determined there as well. So it's hard to predict, but yeah, I mean, just the 49ers game, when I saw that at 49ers, I always hate when you have to go travel to San Francisco. For whatever reason, the Bears always struggle there.
Yep, I totally agree with your analysis there. And then prior to that 4-game stretch, there are those 2 road games at Philadelphia. This is after the home game against the Steelers on November 28th, right after Thanksgiving, and into early December at Philadelphia, at Green Bay. That is tough.
That stretch at Minnesota, starting on the 16th, at Minnesota, after the Giants game, at Minnesota, at, you know, Steelers here, at Philadelphia, at Green Bay, and that's that 4-game stretch, which I pointed out earlier. Like, I think if the Bears are in contention or on the periphery of the playoffs, that 4-game stretch could make or break their run in terms of they're going to qualify or not qualify for the playoffs.
Danny, how you just phrased that brings to mind this question. Is this a schedule that a potential playoff team like the Chicago Bears can overcome? Because I feel like this is a schedule that gets us to potentially 8, 9, 10 wins, but maybe not a playoff spot. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there as well. I mean, it's I mean, you know how bad I am in terms of wins and losses, right? We have a couple of years back-to-back years of Buffon 55 schedule shows that where we could go over to show how bad I am there. But yeah, if I just kind of guess off the top of my head, I'd said like 8, 9, 10 victories could be in the works here. But yeah, like you're right, although it depends on how the NFC is in terms of who's ahead of them and qualifying and tiebreakers and all that stuff. So yeah, the Bears, that's the thing is like to keep in mind is I know it's there's a lot of excitement around Ben Johnson, a lot of excitement in terms of what they've done so far in the offseason. But the Bears could go 9-8 and not make the playoffs, but still be an improved football team. So I think we just want everyone to kind of keep that in overall context above. This is a team that could get better, markedly better, right? But yet not make the playoffs. So that's why I want to see the development of the quarterback. I want to see how the offense gels and in terms of head coach material. How is Ben Johnson, doing that kind of stuff, and then obviously Dennis Allen and defense and all that stuff. And this is a young team that's going to get better and better as as the years go on, hopefully. So if they win 9 games, that's 4 more victories than last year, and they don't make the playoffs. But they're trending up. Caleb Williams is playing great. Rome is coming into his own in his second year, and obviously Colson Loveland and Luther Burden and all these guys are making contributions. The offensive line has been solidified. I mean, there's positives there. Now you can go back into the next offseason and kind of reinforce and fill in some of the other holes that you have to come back and make a whole team. But yeah, I mean, the Bears will make the playoffs this year as long as I'm seeing improvement. It'd still be a good season.
Tooch is backstage. I think he's ready to make the transition in about a few minutes here. So I'd love to ask you this question, and you're welcome to stay as long as you like. But right now, it appears like fans and some pundits are saying that the running back position needs to be strengthened before we get into the season. So I'd love for you to address that with your followers and talk about if you do think that they should pursue a free agent running back, who might be a name or two that you'd like to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a possibility in terms of getting a veteran free agent running back. The names the popular names out there are J.K. Dobbins and obviously Nick Chubb. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But what I would do, and I would suggest the Bears do, is going to these OTAs in early portion, right before training camp starts. So through the veteran mini camp portion, and see what you got in the room there, right? So obviously, DeAndre Swift, Ben Johnson's been on record saying that he's a fan of DeAndre Swift and he has plans on how to utilize him. And we talked about Roshan Johnson, does he have a role here or not? But Kyle Malungai, the 7th round selection, I posted a video breakdown of him. He's a guy that you talk about, a downhill physical thumper, one cut downhill, highly productive, back-to-back seasons in the Big Ten, over 1,200 yards, no fumbles in his career as a ball carrier at Rutgers. So, I think he's a guy that should be given a serious look here. Could be, I'm not saying he's going to come in and be the offensive rookie of the year, but he could be someone that could give you a nice compliment there. And then obviously once you've gone through the OTAs and the veteran mini camp, now you say, all right, well, we're lacking there. We could use someone like a J.K. Dobbins, who's always been productive. His big bugaboo is just staying healthy, unfortunately, right? So I think he's a guy who would be a nice fit there, a nice combination with DeAndre Swift, as is Nick Chubb. There was that video after the draft of Chubb working out. Looked phenomenal, right? But he's coming off of a season where he was injured for most of last year off of a huge knee injury. How is he in terms of his recovery? How healthy is he? And these guys are going to be just 1-year guys, stopgap measure guys until you get into the next offseason where hopefully you can come in and bring in another running back, fulfill that role. So I would go through the OTAs. I would go through a veteran minicamp, see what you got in the room there. And then you feel like, hey, we're gonna need another guy, whether it's Chubb, whether it's J.K. Dobbins, and bring on those guys in on a veteran, like 1-year deal and go from there. But the running back room could possibly get another player in there. The defensive line, I think, still for me is something that I'm still kind of struggling with. I'm still not totally 100% happy with what they have there. I still feel like they could probably bring in maybe an edge guy. Now, I know they're probably looking at Austin Booker, the 2nd-year player, and hopefully he takes the next leap. And I hope so as well. And I have a lot of faith in Austin Booker but I would just like to see another veteran in there. Maybe someone like a Zadarius Smith or someone like that. Just someone where you can come in, you can kind of rely on him to give you some quality snaps there, opposite of Montez Sweat. Obviously, I think the defense tackle rotation with the drafting of Shermer Turner in the second round, I think you plug him in there, or Ron Dexter, obviously, Grady Jarrett, Andrew Billings. I think that should be a solid combination there, 4-man rotation. And obviously, you have a third round pick from a couple years ago, Zach Pickens, also kind of vying for some snaps there too. So, and then with the new guy Ode, you can start him off at edge and he can kick inside to defensive tackle on passing situations. So it gives some flexibility there too. So just one more edge guy for me would be something that I would like to see on the defensive line. It doesn't have to be a big name. I'm not saying go get Trey Hendricks or anything like that, but just another competent guy that can give you some good quality pass rushers there opposite of Montez. And also, and in terms of the offensive line, I think depth. I just want to see quality depth. Obviously, young guys like Bill Murray and some of the guys they brought in, Ryan Bates, some of these guys, we'll see if they can, solidify that. The kid from Michigan State, the 6th rounder. I think, these are guys, let's see if they can solidify the interior of the offensive line. And obviously that left tackle position we've talked about multiple times. But I do feel confident that's going to be manned by either Braxton Jones or Ozzie Trapillo on a left side. So, yeah, just some depth on the offensive line. Maybe another edge rusher on defense. And then also, to me, it's that maybe running back safety. There's a spot here. Earlier I talked about, Tayshaun Johnson, the undrafted free agent from Oregon. I think he's got a shot to make this roster if he comes in and he balls out during the preseason and all that stuff. So, safety at 4 safety could be a spot they could look for some depth there as well, too.
Excellent. By the way, and I apologize. So I was doing something in the background to get Tooch logged in here. And so I don't know if you talked about the 7th round draft pick running back, but if you did, can you give me a capsule of what your evaluation is? Can he become a contributor to this offense as part of the Bears running back committee?
I do. I posted it. This is his report, his scouting report on Shimon Draft Scout. And I think he's a guy, like I said, very productive, back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons at Rutgers, no fumbles for his career. So ball security is huge with him. He's a guy that can one cut downhill in between the tackles type of thumper. I think it's a nice compliment to what they have in DeAndre Swift there. So, that's what I'm saying. Like, go through the OTAs, go through the early portion or the veteran mini camp and see what you got in a Kyle Monangai and see maybe he could fulfill that role that you maybe had earmarked for a veteran like a Nick Chubb or a J.K. Dobbins. So, I'm not proclaiming that Monangai is going to be offensive rookie of the year, but I'm just saying, like, this guy has got some ability. He's got some talent. He runs hard. Again, great ball security, in terms of as a pass catcher out of the backfield. That's going to be a primary role that's given to DeAndre Swift. But, from what I've seen from tape from Rutgers, he's a guy that doesn't fight the ball. He catches it nice and clean when given the opportunity. Wasn't given much of an opportunity at Rutgers. But, I wouldn't just look past Kyle Monangai. Just to kind of, say, oh, he's 7th round pick, whatever. Well, let's see him compete. Let's see what he does there. And if at that point, after the veteran mini camp, which I believe is June 3rd through the 6th, if at that point you're like, we need another veteran in here, then you can go out and you'll find a veteran, whether it's a J.K. Dobbins or Nick Chubb or something like that, and bring him in here and kind of give you some of that veteran stability there in the backfield.
And there might be some interesting names after the June 1st cuts. So we'll keep an eye on that. I want you to respond to what J2K is asking here, or his opinion. I know people think I'm crazy for saying this, but I think Dominic Robinson takes a step up and fits Dennis Allen's defense. The fact that he is kind of the body type that Allen has liked in the past, do you think he could improve his play and make a contribution?
Yeah, in terms of the body type, length, he fits that profile. But JJK, I'm not sure what you've seen from Dominic Robinson to give you any sort of that belief that he could take that next step up, right? So, I mean, he's been given, in my opinion, ample opportunity to go ahead and improve and get better. I haven't seen a natural progression from his game, whether it's, excuse me, he's gotten better in terms of as a run defender. He's gotten a little bit bigger, put on some weight there, but I just, in terms of as a pass rusher, a guy you can, or count on, maybe takes the next step up. It's his new defensive line coach. We'll see what they do here with him here. And that'll be great. If Dominic Robinson can step up, if Austin Booker can take that next step, and you can fill that role opposite of Montez with in-house young guys, that's great. That's perfect. But I haven't seen much from Dominic Robinson in terms of maturation and also getting better progression. His first 3 seasons in the league to have that faith in him. Now, could he surprise us? There's always a possibility that he could surprise us. Although, are you on mute again? You're on mute again, my buddy.
I feel like Reggie Jackson. What was it? Was it 3 that he held up when he hit 3 homers in the playoffs or the World Series? Reggie Jackson, remember that?
Before my time, my friend.
Jeez. Where is Dan Aguirre when I need him? He would know that. Dan Aguirre, by the way, has been attending a bunch of Cincinnati Reds games. He said, I feel like getting back into baseball. He grew up as a Reds baseball fan, so he's been sending me pictures of him and his wife over at the Reds games. He's living the life, that guy. Third time's the charge, Cliff. You're absolutely right. I gotta put some money in the till there. Anything else regarding the schedule or this team that you'd love to get off your chest, and then we'll let you go to bigger and better things?
No, I mean, just again, the first thing that caught my eye was that early bye week in terms of the schedule, the early bye week, and also the first 2 games, bam, right away, for Ben Johnson and company against division opponents. So I think those first 2 weeks, in my opinion, are gonna kind of be an indicator in terms of how the season goes. You go 2-0, you're looking great in the division. You go 0-2, now you're a little behind the 8 ball, and you got to kind of work your way out of that little hole you created for yourself early on. So we talked about, maybe going 5-6 or Greg said 4-6 in the division. If you're going to do that, you got to win at least those first 2 games, or at least one of them at the worst case scenario, break even with those first 2 games. So that start is going to be huge for him. And obviously then, talking about what we talked about earlier, although is in the training camp, play your starters, get them ready, get them lathered up in the training camp, let them be prepared for week 1. A lot of times you kind of hear players that play for Ben Johnson or coaches that have coached with Ben Johnson, and the one thing that they always harp on is he's always a stickler for details. And you gotta block at a certain angle. You gotta have your body position, your feet positioned in a certain way. You gotta be able to, in terms of running your route a certain precise way, and then for a quarterback, gotta do certain things. So that takes repetition, that takes practice, and just assuming that they're gonna do it in training camp practices, and then the lights come on and they're gonna go week 1. That I'm not a believer in that. I believe you got to keep doing this, and you play them in the preseason. Injuries happen. This is football. It's a physical game. You can't be scared. You can't coach scared. You coach scared, your team kind of sees that in you. So that's what I'm hoping for. He gets his team prepared in the preseason, and then once they hit the ground running, and they start off to get off to a good start, and then we'll see where it goes.
Danny, you and I have a lot to talk about, and to talk about it here at the Bar Room. One of the topics that I want to get into you in the next week or two is just your thoughts on how Luther Burden can unlock the promise of Ben Johnson's offense, because the more and more I start to study what he's done at the college level, who he is as a football player, how Ben Johnson could potentially help use him in this offense, I think that Luther Burden could become a Rookie of the Year candidate. Probably won't win it, but it's definitely a candidate.
You stole my prediction. That was going to be my prediction.
No.
For this. I'm with you, Aldo. I'm with you. I love. Now, is he a finished product? No, I'm not saying he's a finished product. There's room in his game to get better. In terms of route running and some of the blocking. In terms of blocking downfield for his teammates. But I think this is someone that we saw that draft day that Antoine Randall was hyped in that draft room when the pick was made. And I said it on draft day on the show we did. I said this is Antoine Randall's project, and he's going to go ahead and he's going to go ahead and light a fire under Luther Burden. And I think I love the chip on his shoulder. Some might say it could be an act, or I believe it. This is a highly touted 5-star recruit. He is a guy that's got big play, break a game open type of potential. And that's, you talk about giving the ball, a 5-yard hitch route or a little bubble screen, whatever, and he can take it to the house. So that's what he's got. And I'm with you. I want to see how Ben Johnson utilizes him in this offense, and how he, especially if you have these 2 tight ends now with Kmet and Colson Loveland, kind of drawing the attention of everyone in the middle of that field. Now you got one-on-one coverage on the outside. You scheme him open, Burn that is, and he's got that ability to maybe, take it 50, 60, 70 yards. So I am really intrigued by how Luther Burden is going to be utilized by Ben Johnson in this offense.
Somebody wants to say hi to you. His name is Johnny Santucci. Johnny, how are you?
Making sure I'm off mute, Aldo.
Well done.
3-0.
What's up, John?
I've watched all of the Shimon Draft Scout videos.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your support.
Awesome job.
Thank you.
Yeah, Luther Burden. I'm going to be talking about him in Bears State of Affairs.
Well, that is
coincidentally.
We're all thinking alike, it seems like, on Luther Burden. And this isn't just fan hyperbole or fan hope. This guy has the credentials to be a really, really special talent. Danny, do you want to stick around for Bear State Affairs and talk afterwards? Or you guys
I do have to run, unfortunately.
Well, like I said, let's get together soon because we've got Burden to talk about and a number of other topics. So I'll reach out to you soon and we'll get something going, okay?
Sounds good. All right, guys.
All right, see you, Danny.
Bye-bye.
All righty. That is Danny Shimon of Shimon Draft Scout.
I watched all of them on the new Bears rookies. So
excellent. Yeah, I'm still 2 or 3 behind, so I got to get to work on that. And I know that you've been working on the Bears State of Affairs. Before we go to that, can you kind of tease us as to what's coming up?
Bears State of Affairs got a little schedule talk, little rookie mini camp and the rookies, and sort of how all this is kind of coming together for Ben Johnson and the team.
I like it. And your immediate reaction, and we'll get into in depth on it after your Bear State of Affairs, but your immediate reaction to the schedule, was it, oh my God, that's tough? Or was it, oh, this is doable, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, more doable, more, kind of leaning towards somewhere in between. But, like last year we had a ton of division games at the end of the season, and unfortunately the team self-destructed before that, with the Fail Mary in Washington, and then the team mutinying against their head coach and him becoming the first head coach fired during a season.
We'll be talking about that with our grandchildren. I remember the time where the Bears players. All right, everybody, buckle up. It's another Johnny Santucci Bear State of Affairs, and it starts right now.
It's time for John's Bear State of Affairs. He got nothing but true bombs about the Bears. He tells it like it is and always has, and he brings it with a little put sass. No shit talking here. Grab yourself a beer. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist, cause you're on his blacklist. Go fuck your fist. You gonna hear the bare truth right now.
Woohoo! Yeah, I love that open. All right, yeah, Bears State of Affairs, Bears mini camp and 2025 schedule release. What's happening, Barflies? Well, the Bears coaching staff got their first look at all their shiny new rookies at rookie mini camp last weekend, except for number 1 draft pick tight end Colston Loveland, man. Yeah, their tight end kind of sat on the sidelines there.
Aw.
yeah. Number 10 overall pick in the draft remains sidelined following offseason shoulder surgery. Yeah, big tight end couldn't really participate in drills yet. He missed 3 games for the Michigan Wolverines in 2024 after suffering a dislocated shoulder early in the season. But Loveland battled through that shoulder issue to appear in 10 of 13 games, though he ultimately required surgery in late January to fix that shoulder.
Ay, Dios mío.
Yeah.
A little louder, Heidi.
Yeah, but Loveland used rookie minicamp to get mental reps, which he said are just as important as physical reps. A Bears fan should look for more 12 personnel formations. Under Ben Johnson, the Lions ran 32.2% of their offensive snaps out of 12 personnel last season. That was the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. And make no mistake, Colston Loveland was Ben Johnson's pick. Before he became offensive coordinator, Johnson coached tight ends. He knows the importance of the tight end position. Loveland will fill that Sam Laporta role in Johnson's offense. And as one of only 3 Bears tight ends taken in round 1 of the draft, along with Greg Olson in 2007 and Mike Ditka in 1961, Aldo.
I love that picture.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yes.
Yeah. Bears and Ben Johnson have big plans for Loveland. They'll just have to wait a little bit longer. Among the players turning heads at minicamp was second-round wideout Luther Burden. The former Missouri star showed off some moves while working in the slot during camp. He also showed off an enormous chip on his shoulder, Aldo.
I love it.
Yeah, when asked about falling to the second round of the draft, Burden wasn't shy, saying, "Everyone who passed on me has got to pay."
I love it.
I love it too. Yeah, with Burden's talent and skill set, well, he certainly has the ability to make teams pay, Aldo. His ability to line up at multiple positions, including out of the backfield, has the Bears expecting big things from him. Last year, the Bears were 29th in the NFL in slot receiving grade last year. That's per Pro Football Focus. That was an area that Ben Johnson likely wanted to improve. So what'd they do? They used this year's draft to grab two weapons who could do some serious damage from the slot.
That's a W.
That's right. Luther Burden was 7th in slot receiving grade among all wide receivers the last 2 years in college football.
Oh, sweet.
And Colson Loveland, he was 2nd in slot receiving grade among all tight ends the last 2 years. Yep. Ben Johnson went and turned a weakness into a strength. Yeah, and another player who also impressed over the weekend was second-round pick Ozzie Trapillo. Yeah, the Boston College offensive tackle is the second highest drafted offensive lineman behind Darnell Wright for GM Ryan Poles. Over the weekend, the 6'8" Trapillo showed good strength, footwork, and technique at minicamp. And can he win that starting left tackle job, though? That remains to be seen. And that training camp battle between Braxton Jones, Kieran Amagaji, and Trapillo, that'll be one to watch this summer. Yeah, how this team comes together under rookie head coach Ben Johnson, that's also going to be something to watch as well. But, yeah, the Bears rookies, they're building camaraderie. That's essential. And the Bears rookies, they look like they're ready to build something special here in Chicago.
I love it.
Now it's time to get ready for the 2025 season because today the 2025 NFL schedule was released. Yeah, let me break this down for you, Aldo.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben Johnson and the Bears, they'll need to be ready for prime time quickly. They open the season ready or not on Monday Night Football versus the Vikings. Yeah, there's good news, though. The Bears have 8 victories against the Vikings on Monday Night Football, the most against any opponent.
Nice.
Yeah, week 2, Ben Johnson will face his former head coach Dan Campbell and the Lions in Detroit. The good news, the Bears lead the all-time series with Detroit 105-80 with 5 ties as well. This will be the first time since 2006 that the Bears' first 2 games of the regular season will be against NFC North division opponents. The Bears will then have a week 5 bye this year. And then they'll return to Monday Night Football for a rematch with Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Yeah, although last time the Bears visited the Commanders, things didn't work out that well for the Bears.
It got worse as the week went on and we learned about all the mistakes.
It was terrible. To be a fly on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that game ended up being the last game Matt Eberflus would coach for the Bears, as he ended up being the first Bears head coach fired during a season. Other highlights of the 2025 Bears schedule include a Black Friday tilt with the world champion Eagles and playing the Packers twice in 14 days in December before finishing up at home versus the Lions.
I'm so fucking scared right now. You shut up.
The Bears know the times and places where they'll meet their opponents on the field of battle. The coach is in place. Yeah, the quarterback is in place. It's now time to build something special. But you know what, Aldo?
What?
It looks like they left one game off the schedule. Yeah! 17-0. Woohoo! Yeah!
Yeah,
17-0. That's Bears state of affairs, brother. Woo!
I love it.
He told it like it is and always will. Listen next week to get an earful of whatever's happening with the Chicago Bears. It always happens here with John's State of Affairs. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist cause you're on his blacklist. You just heard the bare truth right here and now. John gave it to you straight cause he's got no sacred cows. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist cause you're on his blacklist. This was John's Bear State of Affairs.
Brilliant
Woo-hoo!
work, my friend. Brilliant work.
They left
Brilliant
one
work.
game off the schedule, although Super Bowl 60. Yeah.
Okay, so you're in the handicapping business. You've made a lot of
Yeah.
money in the handicapping business, and you've lost some, but you've made a lot of
Mhm.
money. What kind of odds are you putting on the Bears going to the Super Bowl,
Man, I'd have to
being
mark
the
that.
NFC champions? Is it 500 to 1? Are they in the middle of the pack, or are they towards
I'd
the
put it like
top tier?
1,800 or 18 to 1.
Okay, 18 to 1. All right. And
But-
so
I mean, that I don't know. I wonder what the early season odds are to win the search. I could certainly pull that up on VSiN.
yeah, pull that baby up
See what
because
the Bears odds.
this could be a huge payday if you are a Chicago Bears fan and you like to dabble with the gambling. Putting some money down on them becoming the NFC champs could be a good bet. If Tooch is right that it's around 1,800,
Let's say what it is.
might
Let's
want to
see.
put a couple $100
Super
on
Bowl
that.
champ. I'm trying to find the futures.
As you're finding that, I'm going to share a story with people. Back in 2006, when the Chicago Bears made it to the Super Bowl, a few months earlier, my wife and I were in Las Vegas, and so I put down $300 for the Bears to win the Super Bowl. And so it's coming up, and we're winning playoff games. We beat the New Orleans Saints. I run to my wife, pull that ticket out because we're going to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, and we could win big. And so she's looking for the ticket. This is my wife, who's so meticulous about putting things in their proper places and stuff. She can't fucking find the ticket, and I am losing my mind. When the Bears finally lost that game, there was a sense of relief. As much as I hated that they lost, there was a sense of relief that I wasn't going to kill my wife because I lost out of a couple grand.
Well, we're 35 to 1 currently.
35. Yeah, Cliff says
That's
that
off
too.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
3,500.
you know this team better than the Vegas people,
Yep.
but 3,500 might not be bad. So what's that? If I put $100 on 3,500, what do I win? $3,500?
$100. Yeah. You put $100 to win 3,500.
I might do that. I just might do that. It gives me some more, something more to root for.
See, the Eagles are the favorites at 650 to 1, 600, 6 to 1. Bills are next, 7 to 1. Ravens 7 to 1. Chiefs 7 to 1. Lions 10 to 1, 9 to 1. Commanders are next after the Lions.
Ooh.
It's 16. I'm seeing 15 to 1.
Couple of people in the chat room were saying they're just sick of the Washington narrative. Everybody thinks because they had that season last year that they're going to be a dynamite team this year, but there are a lot of skeptics. Where is your mind at with the Washington Commanders 2025 season? Are they going to continue their ascension up the NFL ranks, or could they be stalled, or could they regress as that franchise has been known to do?
I think they'll be a decent team. I'm looking for a little sophomore slump, though, of course, from Jay Daniels and Dan Quinn and company. But I think they'll be solid. The Eagles, of course, are still the king of that division.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how it is after you win a Super Bowl, it's like everybody's gunning for you. And two, players, I'm not saying they're going to relax a little bit and whatnot. They're still competing and whatnot. But they're like, yeah, we won last year. We don't have to win again, But
playing that many games, and they've played deep into the playoffs now for several seasons. It ultimately becomes very taxing. The Chiefs players talked about that.
Yep, the Bills have been making it deep in the playoffs as well. The Ravens, the Lions. It'll be interesting, Aldo, to see how the Lions do without Ben Johnson. See how that offense runs. I forget. I don't know who they replaced Johnson with as offensive coordinator.
I forgot the name of the guy.
I'm sure the chat room has it. But.
Yeah, I'm sure Cliff or J2K will come up with it really briefly. But gotta tell you, Danny Shimon broke down this Lions schedule, Tooch, and this is a tough schedule. I mean, look at Packers, Bears, Ravens to start the season.
Buccaneers.
And then leading into their bye, they got the Bucks, then the bye, the
Bucks
Vikings
beat them last year too.
Exactly. They got the Kansas City Chiefs before the Bucks, the Bengals before Kansas City. This is a tough schedule for the Lions. I could see them winning 9 games and missing the playoffs just simply because they've gone through so much turmoil. They've lost. They've lost people, coaches and players and stuff. This could be a tough season. What's your gut feel on that?
Like, I mean, they've got the Commanders, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Buccaneers. This is tough.
Mm-hmm. What did you just saw the odds a minute ago? Do you still have that up? Can you tell me what the lines are?
Not 9-1. I'm seeing a lot of.
Okay.
Plus 900.
Yeah, I got into it with some Lions fans on social media, just having some fun with them, and I doubt that they're going to be as confident after week 3 about where this team is headed. John Morton is the new Lions offensive coordinator. Kelvin Shepard is the new defensive coordinator. Thank you, Donald Gooch, for that information.
Yeah, Donald Gooch, he's had the past few weeks, he's had a lot of good info for us when we don't have it.
He's our guy. He's our honorary production assistant.
He's like the barroom Siri.
That's right. Hey, Donald. Isn't that cool now? You could just say, "Hey, Siri," and she just pops up out of nowhere. Hey, Siri, give me a blowjob. I still haven't done that. All right. So I want to put up the Bears schedule here, Tush, but let me first start with this because you and I come out of that Mike Ditka school. Mm-hmm. Mike Ditka always said, you got to dominate your division. You got to dominate your division. And it worked. What do you think about this schedule? Week 1, Vikings. Week 2, Lions. Week 11, Vikings. Week 14, Packers. 2 weeks later, it's the Packers again, this time at home. And then they finish at home against the Lions. Do you like us winning 3, 4, 5, all 6 games?
I would like that, yeah. But I don't know if it's going to happen. But
I hear you.
The Lions, of course, going with J.J. McCarthy. Now, we all think he's going to be good, but I mean, again, this is basically his rookie year because he missed all of last season. So he's basically starting from scratch with the Vikings. So I mean, I'd like to think that they will, pick up where they left off with Sam Darnold. But I think we could easily win 1 or 2. I think we should win at least 1 from the Vikings. I mean, week 1, the Bears, they should come out and win that one. They usually, play really well. I think Nagy's first game we won. Eberflus's first game we won. Right? Then we win the 49ers opening day with Eberflus. And then,
that's how I recall it, yeah.
And then Nagy, I think we also won opening day, but they have extra time to prepare.
Yeah. I like when I look at the schedule, I've been telling everybody that I love our home games. I think we can sweep. We can go 8-0 in our home games, starting off Monday Night Football against the Vikings and then against a Cowboys team that is still finding its identity and the infighting and all the turmoil that Jerry Jones brings. And then, unfortunately, we don't have another home game for a month. And that's against the Saints, and I think we could dominate them, and we could dominate the Giants. The Steelers are winnable, Browns are winnable, and then I just feel like we have to dominate the NFC North. And so when you finish with the Packers and Lions, I gotta notch those as wins. My only concern about this home schedule is that for the first 2/3 of the season, it seems like we're on the road more than we are at home. And part of it has to do with the week 5 bye and 2 straight road games twice, week 8, week 9, and week 4, week 6. That worries me.
I don't like having the bye week that early, but it is what it is.
It's awful. It's awful. And J2K and a bunch of people have been putting up in the chat room that the analytics say that the later you have your bye, the more successful you are in the playoffs, particularly teams that have had byes in week 12. I saw, I think it was J2K or Cliff that put that up. So, yeah, this is an unfortunate thing that their bye is so early.
I like coming out of the bye Monday Night Football. We get to play the Commanders, so I have an extra week to prepare for that one. But
that helps.
After week 12, we have a 4-day turnaround to play the world champs. That doesn't please me.
That's it's torturous is what it is. But hopefully this team will have it together by then, and they could really make some news by beating the Eagles on Black Friday.
Like I said, we play the Packers, in like this within 2 weeks. We play them twice in the span of 12 days.
Right. Yep. But regarding the Commanders in that Monday night game, let's go back to week 6. It's, again, this is after a bye and after we've beaten the Raiders in Las Vegas. By the way, that'd be a great game to go to.
Yeah.
But, you come home after being on the other side of the country, and then you come home for a few days, and then you head over to Washington. That could be tricky. It does kind of set up in the Bears' favor. But man, I'm telling you, speaking strictly as a Bears fan, Tooch, if they get humiliated by the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football, week 6, I'm going to be sick to my stomach, brother.
Yeah, I think they'll be totally fired up for that game, though, after last year.
I hope so. And I think, what is your thought about this? And I'd love for you to touch on this, in an upcoming Bears State of Affairs. But the mental makeup of Caleb Williams, I'm hearing more and more people say things like Justin Fields is a better leader. I'm hearing things like Caleb is too distracted with there you go.
What are you talking about, Aldo?
Being a fashion icon and stuff. And he's professed that he likes to get away from the game and so forth. He's not your Mike Ditka type quarterback where he wanted the quarterback to constantly be thinking, drinking, and eating football. What do you think about Caleb and this year, and do you think that's going to play a big factor in those questions about his leadership capabilities?
Yeah, I think you're right, Aldo. I mean, look, one, it's a sophomore season, but 2, I mean, Ben Johnson, man, this is a guy that's he's gonna try his best not to let that shit happen,
Yeah.
He's very demanding. I think what is it? Ian Rappaport had an article back, I don't know, a while back when the Esquire article came out. About how demanding Ben Johnson is on all of his players, but especially the quarterback, and that Caleb won't like playing for Ben Johnson, because it's gonna be the hardest he's ever worked.
Yeah.
But if it pays dividends, then I think Caleb will be satisfied with his career more so than if he didn't.
But it's interesting to me that this quarterback that the media built up to be this wonderkind has never. There was a guy on WSCR radio today, and I caught the interview in the middle, so they didn't do a good job of telling us who they were talking to. But it's a guy named Sean Ellison, I believe, and he's a quarterback guru, and he was touting how Poe's really missed on Jaden Daniels, that coming out of college, it was obvious that Daniels was the better of the 2 quarterbacks because he played on time, 3 steps, back foot, throw. And whereas Caleb's notoriety in college football came from him running around the pocket and creating big plays. And he said, in the NFL, you got to throw on time. And I agree with that. I agree. But it got to the point where the guy was really freaking irritating me because he made it sound like Jaden Daniels is the next coming of Christ and Caleb was just a Philistine. So,
that's an interesting point because when Jaden Daniels was at LSU, of course, he had the reputation of being a film junkie, first in, last out of the building.
Okay.
And then, the Bears, of course, had that pivotal crossroads where they either kept the number 1 pick and drafted Caleb Williams, or they could have traded back 1 spot and then taken whoever of the 2 was there
Mhm.
and just said, fuck it. We got a bunch of picks and we got a guy that we think can be a future great quarterback. One of these two guys, either one of them could probably end up being, top 10, top 5 in the league as far as the quarterback position. But they made their decision. They went with Caleb Williams and they haven't looked back. But, the great point that you make, is that the timing, 3 steps, get rid of the ball. It's got to be on time. JT O'Sullivan in quarterback school, he always talked about that, both with Fields and with Williams, talking about ball's got to come out here, and we'll see. I mean, players like Brett Favre took a while to tame and get into that rhythm, and they would run around and make plays a lot like Caleb and Aaron Rodgers as well. Took a few years before he was able to harness, the timing and the big playability. So that's really what Ben Johnson's got. That's the job that's before him right now with Caleb, is to get the timing, and then when a play breaks down, then uses his escapability and his big playability.
Visual Joe says all the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL, Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar, all play off schedule. And I will debate that. Mahomes plays 80-90% of his plays on time. When he gets into trouble, he's got the ability to avoid the pass rush, much like Aaron Rodgers did. They have different styles and body types, but he can extend plays when he gets into trouble. And so, but for the most part, he is playing on time. And I think that when Josh Allen started to become a better player in the NFL, when he started to adapt the on-time mentality and making that a priority, clearly all 3 of these quarterbacks have the ability to run very well with the ball. But when they are playing their best quarterback, they are throwing on time. Mahomes more than Allen, and Allen more than Lamar is how I see that. By the way, we got a guest in the house. Tooch, you want to take a guess as to who it is?
My buddy has got a great shirt on today.
Oh,
yes,
yeah, baby. Look at that shirt. Yeah.
I did, man.
Yeah, that's a nice one, man. It's got the jersey sleeves, too, man.
I know. Just like Brian Johnson, man. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I got to get that shit, man. That's fantastic.
I love it. Yeah. That really stands out, man.
A nice
big
stripe
time.
detail, yep.
Donald says, electric. Yeah. Yes. Favorite AC/DC song? Go ahead.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah,
favorite Bon Scott or favorite Brian Johnson song? Because I feel like that
Brian Johnson. Yes, you're right.
There.
Yeah. Brian Johnson. He was my favorite.
I would say, man, that's tough. That's tough. Back in Black.
Back in Black?
Yeah. The album. I mean, the whole album is fantastic, but that song is probably my favorite.
Yep. I really dig it that you are a big fan of that era of rock and roll. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people your age are, because you're in your early 30s, right? Or late 20s?
Yeah, I'm 35, going on 36. But I think it's more or less my family growing up. Like, my dad was always big into this kind of music. My stepdad was always big into this kind of music. My mom listened to music from like the 70s, like the disco era. She was all into that kind of shit. So I've got a extensive background listening to that era of music, just from growing up in my family and stuff mostly, but also because I have a huge appreciation for it. I love guitar playing and drums. I have a drum set in my garage I like to jam on every once in a while.
Awesome.
So it's like, I grew up loving it. I played sax when I was in school, when I was younger. So just always had a music background.
Now, your twin brother, by the way, for those people who don't know Jeff Willis, he is the co-host along with his twin brother of the Willis Twin Towers podcast, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central, and they cover the week of the Bears and talk about other various topics. 99% of it devoted to Chicago Bears. So, Jeff, did Tim play music too? Did you guys rock out playing together?
So it's weird because initially when we first started playing music, so really we always like kind of messed around, like playing on because my aunt had a piano, a grand piano, like a really old one when we were growing up, and we'd go over there and mess around on it every once in a while, play on her piano. And like different stuff like that. We had an uncle who had guitars. We just kind of messed around. We didn't know how to do anything, but we'd mess around with it, you know. And then we actually got our musical start in 7th grade. That's where junior high started, where I grew up. It didn't start in 6th grade. It started in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. So Tim and I, when we first started at that school, they offered music class. And actually, Tim started playing drums, and I started playing sax, weirdly. So we started our backgrounds differently. He had a background in percussion. I actually learned how to read music and things of that nature. So
awesome. That's great.
I played sax through high school until I was a senior when I moved, and I quit band because for a lot of different reasons, but it was just a bad time for me. But in any case, I played all through high school until my senior year. And then Tim also played drums through high school up until, I want to say I think he stopped his junior year. I'm not 100% sure on that, but really we just kind of stuck with it. Tim still plays some drums. He'd probably tell you he's better than me, but I don't know about that. He's got a background in it. He was trained in it. So it's a little different.
Everything he's better at than you.
You're right about that one. You're right about
Eating,
that.
wrestling, anything.
But the problem with the whole thing is he's wrong. He's always wrong about that. So
I love it. I love it. All right, Jeff, let's get you into this conversation about the schedule. We had Gabriel on for the first 30 minutes and then Danny Shimon for about 45 minutes. Tooch just issued up another great Bears state of affairs, and then we started talking about the schedule. I want to get your reaction, Jeff, just when it was out and you finally said, all right, this is the official schedule. Now I can really seriously think about it. What was your reaction to it?
Honestly, I had a couple initial reactions, and one of them's a little on the negative side, so I'll hold that one off for a minute. But
okay,
I feel like, honestly, it's not a bad schedule. I like that they have a lot of primetime games because I like being able to watch the games in primetime. I think having the focus and the spotlight on you should be a good thing. If it's not, that says a little bit more about you than it does about the schedule in and of itself. So I was excited to see they've got the 2 Monday night games. They've got the Sunday night game. They've got the Black Friday game. They've got the game. What's the other game they play in prime time? I think it's a Saturday game. But there's a whole bunch of them. The one thing I would say is I think it's interesting that they lined up. I don't know why they keep doing this. They lined up the 2 Packers games really like almost one after the other at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they've been doing that a lot lately. It might just be me, but I do feel like that's the case. But the other thing that kind of bothered me, and this is, I'm going to catch some grief probably a little bit for saying this. And I don't want to say this in a negative light because my hope is that this does not happen. But the fact that they play Minnesota and Detroit back-to-back to start the season is a little worrisome to me. Detroit's still a very good team, and you got to go on the road to play them. Now, obviously, the Bears are going to be fired up for that game, I'm sure. But still, it's a little worrisome there. And, you play Minnesota to start the season. That's a very good team, too, a playoff team that you're starting the season against. So even if my problem with the whole thing is, my point to all this is, if you start slow for whatever reason and the Bears start 0-2, that's a little scary to me. It's going to scare a lot of people off. But at the same time, I'm not that concerned because if you start 0-2, it's a new regime. Everybody's got to gel. You got new pieces on the offense and the defense who all got to come together. So I feel like if I just don't want everybody to freak out if and when they do start 0-2. I'm not saying they will, but they could. You know what I mean? Right. So if that happens, I don't want everybody to freak out and say, oh, my God, the season's lost. Because it's not.
Well, and let me allay any concerns you have about that first game against the Vikings by saying this is something that J2K posted a while ago, is that Ben Johnson, I think in every game that he's played against the Vikings defense, his team has scored at least 30 points. So he knows how to get around that blitzing style defense that they have up there. Now, it could be different with Caleb Williams at the helm other than, Jared Goff. Jared Goff is not going to move from the pocket. If you're going to blitz him, he's going to stay in the pocket and get rid of the ball very, very quickly. And that's something that Caleb has to reliably put in his arsenal in order for us to maintain the Ben Johnson streak of scoring 30 plus points against that team. But I understand your concern. Absolutely understand. We could be 0-2. Now, I am of the belief, Jeff, that we have to dominate the NFC North teams. And so I'm at this stage right now, and tomorrow I might wake up differently, but that we're going to run the table with these NFC North teams. I think we're 2 times better than the Packers. We should be able to beat them. The Lions are going to be tricky, but I have trust that Ben Johnson's going to outsmart Dan Campbell. And then the Vikings, I think, are in a transition year. They're going to be starting that game, Jeff, on Monday Night Football with basically a rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. So, Tooch, where's your confidence level that they're going to be at least 1-1 and maybe even 2-0 before the Cowboys come to town?
Well, with the Vikings, I think for sure that we should be 1-1 at minimum those first 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That Lions game in Detroit's going to be tough. We always play the Lions tough, though.
We do.
We should win that week 1 opener. I know it's Monday Night Football, but these players want to make an impression with Ben Johnson. They'll come out fired up for their new coach. They have extra time to prepare for this game. Is there only 2 preseason games this year?
No, there's 3.
3. Okay, so so
are.
Miami was the one I was missing. Okay, they haven't listed the time. Okay,
correct.
The Bills, the Chiefs, and the Dolphins. Those will be the Bills and Chiefs. That's some good practice games there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Where are you guys on the whole play the veterans, don't play the veterans stuff for these preseason games? Danny was saying, and I agree with him, the veterans should get a lot of work, particularly when you look at the fact that the bye is so early. That will help these guys replenish their bodies after a lot of early season contact.
I agree.
What do you guys think?
I agree.
I do too. And before I kind of explain why, there's a bunch of people talking about AC/DC in the chat, and I just want to say I love it. And I almost forgot. I don't know what I was thinking. Back in Black is not my favorite AC/DC song. I do love it, but Hell's Bells is the song that I was thinking of. And I don't know why.
There's so many good ones,
Back
man.
in Black. I really don't. But Hell's Bells is, oh my, it's just a phenomenal song.
The best walkout music for a team like baseball, football. Thunderstruck.
Yes.
Walkout.
Yep. That's a great guitar part in that.
Jesus, sure. we could spend 2 hours talking about AC/DC just easily. Yes. It's a great band. But I want to get back to the schedule, Jeff, and kind of continue along where you left off. You were talking about your concern in the first 2 weeks. What about heading into that week 3, that Cowboy game at Soldier Field?
Yeah, I think that is a very winnable game, I feel like. And I really think that the players on this team are going to have it out for Flus in week 3. I really do.
I can't wait.
Look, I mean, I tend to agree with you guys. I think week 1 is a very winnable game, and they should win that game. All I was saying was I think they could be 0-2, and I don't want everybody to be frightened off by that. But, yes, they should be 1-1. J.J. McCarthy's first game, I mean, he's a rookie quarterback. Dennis Allen, I feel like defense has come along faster than offenses at the beginning of the year anyways. It's a better matchup, I feel like, for the Bears to start against them in week 1 than maybe later on in the year. But so they will anyways. But the fact they have them at home to start, it's a good spot. So, but going into week 3, though, against the Cowboys, that's a road game or a home game, I'm sorry. And Flus is coming into town. Like I said, I feel like the players, especially after that Esquire interview that Caleb Williams had, where he was talking about how, he basically admitted that the locker room had lost Flus after that game in Washington when they lost on the Hail Mary. We all kind of saw it happening at that point, Yep. We all, especially because of that doubling down on that play before the Hail Mary, I think was really what caught everybody and irked everybody the most. So the fact that he's coming into town in week 3, there's almost going to be like a personal vendetta. I think that they want to get this thing. They want to make sure they take care of business here. Yeah. So the offense, I feel like by week 3, they should really kind of maybe not really have their identity set by them, but maybe start to have a better idea of what this offense is going to look like the rest of the year. And I think they understand Flus's defense. The players understand how he thinks. And also, Ben Johnson understands how his defense plays as well. So he's going to have an idea how to attack this. And also at the same time, I have actual doubts about the way he's going to deploy Micah Parsons personally. I think it's a really interesting situation for him to be going to Dallas. I think he's going to improve the defense absolutely because he is a good defensive coach. He's shown that. But I think again, I will be very, very, very interested to see how he deploys Micah Parsons in his defense because I'm not sure that he can just rely on putting him on the edge all the time and playing him that way. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm not sure what he's going to do, but I don't think he's going to deploy him in the most I guess he's not going to use him in the best way he can be used, the best ways he could be used to maximize his talent. So that's just my personal opinion. I have doubts on that. What do you think about that too yourself? I mean, like I said, I think they should win that game, so they could very well be 2-1 there. But yeah, what do you think about Flus and the defense?
I think they should be going into that bye minimum 3-1, Aldo and Jeff. Yeah. There's 4 games on that schedule that the Bears should automatically win. The Saints, the Giants, the Browns, and what's the other one? The Saints, Raiders. We should win those 4 games.
They should beat the Raiders pretty handily. That's a game that as a tier you should be better than them.
Yep.
Just on paper, you're a better team than them, and there's no reason you shouldn't win that game. I mean, you are going on the road, but you're getting ready to go on a bye. You know, you got time to prepare for your next game. I just don't want them looking ahead to Washington is the one problem I would have there, but because they're going to want revenge in that game on Monday night. So
that's why it's good that there's a bye in between there. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Instead of looking forward to Commanders, they're looking forward to taking a week off.
You're probably right about that. Tucci. And that might be the saving grace there. It might, and I think they're going to be prepared for these games anyways with Ben Johnson. I think he's going to have them ready to go, especially early in the season. They're going to make sure they're on top of everything. So where they're making as minimal of mistakes as possible. So I don't think the mental focus is going to be the issue here. That would just be, like I said, that would be the one concern I could have about that game against the Raiders because they should easily win that game as well. So I agree with you. 3-1 is very doable. Very, very doable.
That'll be nice.
That Washington game, they should be 4-1. I mean, I would be ready and fired up to play Washington. I mean, they've got to be.
If they go into that bye at 3-1, they should be feeling pretty good about themselves, getting into week 6 with the Commanders. Because then if you lose that one and you're 3-2, you got the Saints next week to get to 4-2, which is after 6 games, we were 4-2 last year. Then you got the Ravens and Bengals. Like the Ravens will be a tough game.
That's a tough slate there.
The Bengals will be tough, but it's winnable. Then you got the Giants you should win. And then the Vikings, Steelers are both winnable games.
Those are tough games, though, in and of themselves. On the road against the Vikings, the Steelers are always a tough team, no matter who their quarterback is.
Yeah. Winning in the NFL in general is tough. But, I mean, I like our chances in those 4 games I named. The Raiders, the Saints, the Browns, and the Giants. We should take all 4 of those.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, the thing is, there's always going to be a game or two, and there's a lot of cases in a lot of years where it's more than a game or two. It's a handful of games where you should win, you could win, but you don't win. Yep. And it just happens that way for whatever reason. There's always a slip-up game here and there for a lot of different teams,
Yeah.
So even the best teams lose games they shouldn't lose. So I'm sure there will be 1 or 2 here and there somewhere, maybe more than that. I hope not more than that, but
yep. If you go 3-3 in the division at worst,
I feel good about that.
That's 7 wins. Then if you take, maybe you could beat one of the Steelers or 49ers, and you're at 8 wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the top half of the schedule is not too bad, really, looking at it on paper. I mean, it's a pretty reasonable schedule. There's a handful of very difficult games, like I said, Baltimore, Detroit, even Minnesota, Washington's another really tough game. So there's a handful of tough games on that slate, but I agree with you. I could see them winning 5 of those games there. I really could.
Here, let me say those 4 games I mentioned against those teams.
I'm sorry, go for it.
Those 4 games I mentioned that are should be automatic wins, and nothing's automatic, like I said, in the NFL. Nothing's automatic. But those four games, Then you go 3-3 in the division at worst. That's 7. Then let's say you beat the Cowboys, you're at 8 wins. So if worst, you're 8-9. Then if you can take a game from like the Steelers, the 49ers, or the Bengals, then you're looking at 9-10 wins. And that's how I think the Bears have to look at it. That it's definitely possible to be above 500. If you get to 10 wins, I think you have a chance of making the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Cliff earlier in the chat, when I was watching earlier before I jumped on, I think he nailed it when he said 8 wins, something along the lines of 8 wins is very doable. 9 wins or more is great. And I have a tendency to agree with that. I think 8 wins, is pretty much, you really want to get there. That's where you really want to be, and then some. So 8 wins is good. I think that's a very attainable goal. You really want to win more than that. Obviously, like you said, Tooch, 10 wins could very well get into the playoffs. So they get to that point, you're fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah.
I think you're on mute again, Aldo.
I am. That's 4. That's 4 in one show. That's
put $1 in the mute jar.
Put $20
every time.
Here's what I want to share with you guys is, as I look at the schedule, there's so many fascinating storylines. And so week 1, you've got the young Ben Johnson against another young coach who has built up some success early in his career. And you've got the rookie quarterback from Michigan. I mean, if the Bears defense comes out and just rocks this kid, we could really put a huge zit on that kid's career, a zit that could be bothering him the rest of his life because he'll become gun shy. That's the storyline I'm seeing week 1, Monday Night Football. It's going to be a great game. Then when you go to week 2, the obvious storyline, of course, Ben Johnson going back to Detroit. How the fans are going to treat him. They'll probably throw some shit at him because those stupid Detroit Lions fans. But it's going to be the test of Campbell versus Ben Johnson and start the debate. Who was the true mastermind of that Lions team? Love that storyline. And then week 3, of course, the Matt Eberflus storyline. This motherfucker, every Chicago Bear fan that's going to be at that game is going to have something nasty to say about Eberflus because this guy's approval rating is lower than any other president in the United States, any other person, I think. And then the week 4 storyline, guys, is, of course, Johnny Santucci's storyline, Ashton Genty. He was the guy that we thought would either fall to 10 or we seriously had discussions about maybe even trading up 2, 3, 4 spots to land this guy because so many people like Tooch thought that this guy is a transformative type running back. So is he going to rush for 150 yards against the Bears or the Bears going to bottle him up? That's just a fascinating storyline. And then just to finish things off on week 6 after
it's funny,
the bye,
though, before you move on,
sure.
Every team's biggest weakness. There's the Bears
running back.
Running back. That's our biggest weakness.
Yeah, it is.
It
is. We got some unproven, not unproven, but unproven in terms of whether they can be championship style running backs.
Next year, Jeremiah Love, though, Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff.
That would be great, man. I wouldn't hate that at all. No, I'm telling you what, though, Notre Dame I know this is a little off subject, but they are recruiting like a son of a bitch. Like, they just got two top 250 running backs in the country in like the last 2 weeks. So
outstanding.
They're on a roll, man.
Yeah, that's going to be a team that's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the 2025 college football season. But I love the storylines that are coming out of this Bears schedule. That's just the first third of the season, that week 6 match against Jaden. And to have it on the road, I got to believe that this Bears team, guys like Jalen Johnson, the leaders of this team, Cole Kmet and so forth, they're going to have a totally different attitude about that game in Washington. They're going to be fired up. They're going to be buttoned down. They're going to, this could be a shellacking. Bears beating Washington like Justin Fields shellacked them. What was that, 3-4 years ago? It could happen again. I wouldn't doubt it. Danny Shimon is very doubtful that Washington Commanders are going to have the same kind of success in 2025 that they had in 2024. What do you guys think about the Commanders team this year?
Go ahead, Tooch.
Looking back at their draft, they again went to the offensive line with their first pick, Josh Connerly.
Mm-hmm.
They had some speed at wide receiver, Jalen Lane. Then they took one of my guys, a speedy running back, Corey Krusky Merritt. So
I love that guy, Shrine Bowl stud. Yep.
It was a guy I thought maybe we could get him in the 7th round, but
Mm-hmm.
I think let's see, I forgot. I want to look at their roster because didn't they sign or get someone to be opposite of
On the pass rush,
Terry,
I believe.
Terry
Yeah.
McLaurin too. They get a wide receiver
I
opposite.
can't think of this right now.
Okay, well, I can't think of his name either.
Let's see, Washington.
I can't think of it for the life of me. But I will say this though about Washington is Adam Peters came over from San Francisco, their GM. I think he's doing a good job over there. I think
they have Debo.
Debo,
that's who it was. Yep, Debo. So again, San Francisco, there's the connection right there. So, I feel like I do agree with you guys. I think there's going to be a bit of a drop off. I'm not sure if you said that too, but I do agree with you, although I think they will drop off a bit, take a bit of a sophomore slump, so to speak. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Jaden Daniels have the kind of, I don't want to call it a drop off, but maybe not be quite as stellar as CJ Stroud had as a rookie year going into his sophomore year. So I still think they're a very good team. I think they're a very good team, a very competitive team. They're probably a playoff team, but I don't think they will be quite the Cinderella story they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a stretch of games, Aldo, where the Commanders didn't punt at all for five straight games.
Right.
They didn't need their punter at all. They would go for it on 4th down.
What's going to be the most interesting thing with the Commanders for me is to see how the offensive coordinator is going to switch things around, because the first half of the season, Jaden Daniels and that offense were red hot, especially like around week 4 or 5 when McLaurin finally started seeing passes go his way and he was breaking things and stuff. But then the second part of the season, Washington had ups and downs. It seemed like defensive coordinators are trying, catching up with what's the offensive coordinator's name? Who was at USC?
Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury. It seems like they started to catch up, so it's going to be interesting to see how they start 2025. Are they going to start hot again, and are they going to continue that hot streak, or have defensive coordinators kind of caught up to what Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels are doing? That's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I was just going to say, and that's the thing too, is defenses, these coordinators, they're not dummies, man. They have a whole year of tape now they can watch of this guy and start to make a plan of how can we slow this guy down? How can we stop this offense a little bit? And like you said, Aldo, Kingsbury, he's been in the league before and he failed as a head coach in Arizona. And defensive coordinators had caught on to his offenses and started to figure him out a little bit. He came back now as a coordinator and has had success. So I'm going to have my eyes on that too. Is he going to continue to grow and innovate, or is he going to be caught on to again by these coordinators? They're going to slow him down again.
Right.
Yeah.
What makes that offense tough, though, is Jaden Daniels' ability to, use his legs to extend the drives.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, and then of course they had a decent running game, and the tight end was really good. Zach Ertz last season had a great year.
Yeah.
And Terry McLaurin finally had a good quarterback throwing to him, the deep ball. And then now they've got Debo. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting.
And they added Laramie Tunsil to their offensive line at left tackle,
left
right?
Tackle, Laramie Tunsil. Yep.
Still a good player.
Yep.
Yeah, he's still good. The word on him is that he was starting to push around some of the younger players in that Texans offensive line. He sort of, if you are familiar with Chicago Bulls basketball, Charles Oakley used to, pimp slap Scottie Pippen and stuff, and Jerry Krause was like, I need to separate these guys. I need to ship Oakley out of town and get a veteran center in here. Yeah. But I love how that first third of the season is shaping up. And I know I'm talking as a fan. I know I'm looking at the glass half full. Fuck, it's fucking overflowing. I do think that first third of the season, we can walk away with a 5-0 record, 4-1, and then get that 5th or 6th win against the Saints before then playing those two really, really tough AFC North teams, the Ravens and Bengals. That's going to be a problem on the road. So, but I don't feel too bad about the schedule. By the way, Jeff and Tooch, did you guys see the segment where I put up the Vikings schedule? This is what their team released. Now,
Oh God!
What the hell?
That is the most hideous graphic I've ever seen.
Yes. I don't know if they were trying to make it look like a Viking map or what, but that shit is fucking awful. Pardon my French.
That's what,
No, I love it.
It is.
J2K says that they were doing like maybe a tattoo theme, but I don't know now. I can't tell if it was tattoo or.
Did you notice they're in the Cleveland game? They have a purple crayon breaking a brown crayon. How unbelievably unoriginal and stupid is that?
I think it's if it's a third grader, I'm saying A+.
Yes.
If it's an adult,
the Ravens last year around the time we played the Ravens, maybe it was earlier in the season. The Ravens lost at home to the Raiders, and I forget that name of that quarterback. He's like a backup. He was on the Colts last year too.
Colt
Minshew?
McCoy?
No, Minshew, Gardner Minshew. He went into Baltimore, and the Raiders sucked last year. They beat the Ravens at home. They couldn't stop Gardner Minshew.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know what? I've always thought Gardner Minshew would be a great backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Not now, because now we got Tyson Bagent, and I think he's going to be a more than adequate backup. But Gardner Minshew could be a valuable piece to any team trying to win a Super Bowl, because he can win you 2 or 3 games out of 4 if he's pinch hitting there.
Yeah. Speaking of the Raiders, Aldo, did you happen to see this?
Oh my gosh, I've been dying to talk to you about this. Jeff, do you know what this is?
I have no idea what that is.
All right, tell him, Tooch.
So the guy on the right is Nicolas Cage playing John Madden.
Okay.
And the guy on the left is Al Davis, played by Christian Bale. You don't even recognize him.
The Batman guy.
The guy who played Batman. Look at that.
Nicolas Cage, you cannot recognize like that, looking like John Madden. And I my question is, why did they choose Nicolas Cage from John Madden?
I had the same
Maybe
thought,
he does a good impression. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's a great actor, but why John Madden though? That
I
doesn't
thought
make
somebody
sense.
like John Favreau would be a much better guy than Nicolas Cage, but Cage is a great actor. He might pull it off.
Nick,
I think he'll play the part well. I just don't think it makes sense, really.
I exactly. That's a good way of looking at it.
To be honest, though, there's not a movie role that Nicolas Cage will turn down these days.
No, the guy owes so much money in taxes. Yeah.
Right. Whatever you want him to play, he'll play it.
Yeah, and the thing about Christian Bale is, I think he's one of the world's finest actors. That guy totally transforms himself from role to role. He is really fucking good. And I would never have recognized that was him. Hey, look at who's here. Look at who is here.
Oh, man.
Holy shit. We got a gentleman by the name of Vinny Parisi. There you go.
My other radio son. What's up, son?
What's going on, boys? I have to be a little on the quieter side. Everyone's sleeping. I'm used to being loud as shit, annoying as fuck. Not today.
So good to see you. Vinny Parisi is the co-host of Bar Down Talking Hockey here on the Barroom Network every Thursday around noon. Usually you're starting now, right?
Yep. And I saw the Oilers were in an intermission, so I figured I'd run over here real quick and spew my typical Bears negativity all over the place.
Yeah, I could see a good fight between you and Jeff. Jeff is being very hopeful right now, and Vinny's going to come with the negativity. You guys go ahead.
So when I talk about other sports on twitter.com, everyone says I wear rose-colored glasses. And then when I get to Bears season, everyone thinks I'm like just a negative Nelly all the time. I'm like, well, they go 5-12 every year. I'm like, what do you mean I'm being negative? they've had 3 offensive coordinators in the last 18 months. What do you mean I'm being negative? It's not my fault.
Yeah.
Tell him he's being a pessimist, Jeff.
Please make me feel better. I hate my life.
Well, man, dude, I tend to agree with them for the most part. If the shoe fits, man, history tells us this is what they do, So, I understand why you would have negativity. We all have negativity at points in time. I will say that this is a very. I just think that it's a different vibe with this particular staff that's been assembled this offseason. The things that are going on. They brought in legitimate offensive line talent. The guys who have actually been there, done that, Super Bowl winner and Joe Tooney, all pro player. And that's where they needed the most help is up front to protect their quarterback. So, I just feel like they addressed the biggest needs. They went and got the most innovative offensive mind in the league. The guy who's been the best play caller in the league for the last several years, best play designer in the league for the last several years.
Yep.
I feel like there's a reason for optimism. The one thing I would say, though, if they're having some negativity, it's like you got to give these guys time. So if they don't come together right away, there's a good chance we're going to see some negativity from Bears fans.
Absolutely. I agree with all those points. I've loved their offseason so far. I was so excited. And then the schedule came out today. And I'm like, what happened to the days where coming in last place meant you had a fair schedule? And I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, this is a last place schedule. Oh, that's what happens when the other 3 teams in your division win 11 plus games last year. That's your 6 division games. Oh, let's check outside the division though, because they don't only play their division.
How about the world champs, Vinny?
The world champion Philadelphia Eagles in Philly on a big holiday type game.
I know.
You got the Baltimore Ravens who have an all-world quarterback. You have the Cincinnati Bengals who have an all-world quarterback. Will the San Francisco 49ers have a bounce-back year? Probably when they play the Bears. Will the Dallas Cowboys have a bounce-back year? You hope not when they play the Bears, especially with that one being at Soldier Field. But, man, I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, oh, it's nice to see the Browns and the Giants, teams that typically have had some struggles. And then are you kidding me? You got the team that you had that Hail Mary against last year on Monday Night Football after a bye. I just really hope that some of the traditions of this losing team are kind of nixed by the fact that they made a great head coaching hire. They have a quarterback that's developing, and the offensive line took some massive upgrades. I like Loveland and some of the draft picks that they've made. The schedule, it gives me the Sunday scaries, no pun intended.
Yeah, but Vinny, we got God on our side.
We got God on our amen, Tooch, as a couple of Italians ourselves.
Aldo.
Absolutely. Amen.
All 3 Italians,
amen.
boys.
Forget Sister Jean.
I declared war on Sister Jean when she threw out the first pitch at the Cubs game. I've had war against Sister Jean for going on, 5 years now? Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
How about that video of the Pope at the World Series game for the White Sox? Did you guys see that?
That was cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was the game that Scott Podsednik hit a walk-off home run.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a league in the Vatican knew who Scott Podsednik was? If Scott Podsednik walked in the Vatican right now, the Pope would be like, Scotty Pod's my guy. That's the first Pope who would ever say that. That's amazing. I love this guy.
So true.
The bread of Christ, the deep dish pizza.
By the way, if you guys don't know, Vinny Parisi, you're still over at Bears Wire, right?
Yes, I do Bears Wire, and I got another writing job with the Hockey News covering the Chicago Blackhawks. So
Hockey News.
I'm on the beat with the credential. I have been for about a year now, and it's been really, really good going. So, and then we bring it all and just run our mouths on bar down once a week too, on Thursdays now at about noonish.
Yeah. That is fantastic news. As a kid, and when I was a kid, there was horse-drawn carriages and shit like that. I would go to a newsstand and buy my copy of the Hockey News. It was like the size of today's Chicago Sun-Times, a tabloid style, it had color photographs and articles from the top hockey newspaper writers from around the country and stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then the more money was put into them. They had these really well-produced color magazines with great pictures and great articles. And now my man Vinny is writing for the Hockey News.
Nice.
Very, very nice.
Very
Aldo,
nice opportunity.
You're a Chicago guy, Aldo. I can't remember. When I lived in Portage Park, there was a news place on
Cicero
Yes.
Avenue. Yes.
Man, every one of those, like Hockey News, Pro Football
stuff.
Weekly, from all over the world, newspapers, magazines. Man, I can't remember the name of the shop. But,
I don't remember the name of it either, but I went
it's
there.
not there anymore, or probably not.
I think it's 2 or 3 years ago when I was in that area. It
was still there.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they've actually expanded it. Have a little coffee shop area too,
Oh,
but I don't know if it's currently open. And I'll tell you,
Oh.
every time I got into that area, I would walk into this magazine store, and I would spend easily an hour looking at their magazines, particularly the segment in the back where they had all the porn magazines.
I knew that's where I was going. I knew exactly where that was going.
What is this? Chuck's magazine.
Aldo learned. He just got done watching Shoeless Joe Jackson play a baseball game, and then he was in there. No,
That's
I'm
right.
kidding. Mean joke.
No, that's a good joke. And the guy saying, "Hey, are you going to buy it or just read it here or jerk off to it here?" No.
Guy wanted to know why the pages were sticking together after Aldo left.
That's right. Exactly. All right, guys, let's finish up our talk here about the NHL schedule, particularly the Chicago Bears. Vinny, have you had a chance to look at some of the other team schedules in the division? What the Packers are doing, what the Lions are doing, what the Vikings are doing?
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think is a positive for the Bears is they have to play these AFC North teams too. So the Packers, the Lions, they're going to be playing against the Bengals and the Ravens. I'm really high on the Bengals. If they waste another year of Joe Burrow, I am going to drive myself right to Cincinnati. I'll probably stop and get some Skyline chili on the way. And tell them that they need to trade Joe Burrow because I'm sick of watching them waste this guy's talent. Now he needs to stay healthy. I don't foresee them starting, 0-4 again like they always do and then try to come back late in the season because they have 2 gimmies right out of the gate. But as far as the division, yeah, it'll be nice to see some of these teams go against more stiff competition similar to the Bears, like I said, also playing the AFC North. Their strength of schedule is a little bit weaker than the Bears, but that's because you just add the Bears to their schedule instead of, the Lions can't play themselves, right? Like you take them off your schedule and put the Bears, that will lower your strength of schedule from the previous season. But as far as that, I more look at the rosters of each team at this point. Are the Vikings going to regret letting Sam Darnold go? Even though he's not this all-world quarterback, I still think he had a respectable season last year. Is J.J. McCarthy going to come in as a rookie? Jordan Love seemed to have taken a step back a little bit last year, but I don't necessarily foresee that as his, downfall necessarily. I'm not trying to compliment any Green Bay Packers here on the formerly known Bears Barroom. It'll always be the Bears Barroom in my heart. But
Yeah,
the NFC North. I remember the NFC North Barroom, to be honest with you.
Wow,
but
you go back that far, huh?
Oh, I've been following on Twitter. You probably had less than 1,000 followers when I first clicked that follow button
Look
a
at
long
that.
time ago.
Those
But
are all
yeah,
my cousins too.
yeah, and I think Detroit. We'll see what happens without Ben Johnson. Like there are question marks for these teams in the division with this tough schedule, where the Bears seemed to be the only team in the division that you can say truly took a step forward. Now it's hard to take a step forward when you go 15-2 or whatever. The Lions, you're going to lose coordinators. Hopefully the Bears lose their coordinators one day, because that would mean that they were great and they had a deep run in the play. That's a sign of a good team. I love when people complain that they lose all their coordinators. That means you ruled. That means other people wanted your guys. You know, the Chiefs and the Patriots have been losing coordinators for 15 years.
Unlike what's happened recently with the Bears, they get fired for jerking off in their office or whatever happened.
Exactly.
I don't know what happened.
Exactly. That's a great point. Wow. So
jeez.
You know,
good stuff, Vinny Parisi. Hey, Vinny. So you're also doing some other podcasts, right, on other networks. Why don't you tell people where else you're at?
So during the hockey season, I host a pregame show for the New Jersey Devils on the Let's Go Devils podcast network. So it's called Game Day Live. It's about a half hour before every Devils game. They decided to get real hurt and injured down the stretch this season. So they kind of, being one of the top teams in the league, they hung on and made the playoffs and got smoked by Carolina in round number 1. But going into next year, I think if everybody's healthy and all that, it'll be another fun year. So yeah, that's what I do over there. We call it Game Day Live. It's like a pregame show, a little pregame show.
Excellent. I can't tell you how many times Mike North has told me, I can't believe that Vinny is a New Jersey Devils fan. What the hell is wrong with him?
I remember one time I had him on, and he told me I was one of like the 5 New Jersey Devils fans who exist on planet Earth. I'm like, you know, Mike, you make a great point until they're in the final, and then they have the loudest building in the league.
Jeff, you live in California now, outside, but you lived in the Chicago area, which is why you probably are a Bears fan. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I grew up in I technically grew up in a city called Mishawaka. It's right next to South Bend, where obviously Notre Dame is at. So I used to go tailgate to Notre Dame all the time. I grew up like an hour from Chicago, hour and a half at most from Chicago. So
did you look at it as, I got a choice of being an NFL fan of the Lions or of the Bears, and make that choice, or it was just automatic Bears?
What about the Colts?
In Indiana, I was going to say, in Indiana, you're pretty much either a Colts fan or you're a Bears fan. There's some Packers fans there too, but what's weird about Indiana is, like, if you're in the north, it's mostly Bears and Colts. But if you're like the northern part of Indiana, it's almost all Bears fans. When you get further south, though, towards Indianapolis, towards where my brother's at, Terre Haute, they're all Colts fans down there. Everyone is Colts fans. So it's pretty much the northern part of the state is Bears fans, but there's a ton of them up there. Yeah.
Interesting. So the whole you becoming a Bears fan was kind of automatic, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I grew up with it. Honestly, I liked the Chiefs a lot when I was a kid, though, because I was always a Bears fan, but growing up, they weren't very good when I was really little. So I grew up watching like Priest Holmes winning, 2 MVPs, being a stud running back.
Fantasy stud too, yeah.
Yeah, he was. They had really good teams back then too. Their offenses were just powerhouse. Dick Vermeil was the head coach at the time. They were really good, and I was a fan of watching it. Eric Thomas was a stud edge rusher. They were such a good team and a lot of fun to watch. So I grew up as a big fan of the Chiefs before they got really good. Now they're winning Super Bowls, but I obviously was a big Bears fan growing up. I watched. I remember early on, when I was really young, I remember when the Bears drafted Rashaan Salam, and my dad was all not real thrilled with it. And turns out he ended up being right because he sucked. But yeah, I was, I remember when
I'll never forget the NFL films that are featured on Rashaan Salam. As it was, the feature was, trying to regain respectability in the NFL. He was trying to get back after some hardship and so forth. And I'll never forget this Rashaan Salam quote. He goes, "Man, that marijuana is a bad thing." It's like total admission. Yeah, I fucked up because I was getting high too much. It's like, wow. God bless Rashaan Salam. He did pass away, some 5-6 years ago, something like that.
I forgot about that.
And Tooch, you became a Bears fan because you grew up in Chicago, right? So you had to be a Bears fan. You get your ass kicked.
Yeah, my dad and uncles used to always watch the game, and I was like 5-6 years old. Started watching. Wanted to be part of the scene.
Yeah.
So,
I started more as just loving to play the game of football. And then, back then, Jesus Christ, I'm so old that back then there was a time where the home games were blacked out unless there were sellouts 72 hours before kickoff. And so a lot of games, I'll never forget this one game against the Dallas Cowboys. And Tom Landry was alternating quarterbacks between Roger Staubach and Craig Morton. Couldn't see it on TV. Every play, the quarterback was changing. Had to listen to it on the radio and thinking, this is so fucked up. I can't believe this league would do that to these fans. But back then, nonetheless, the whole listening on radio created this mystique about the team. And then you watch the highlights on the news at night. I fell in love with the Bears, fell in love with their uniforms, the character of the team, the tough guys like Butkus and speedsters like Sayers. That's me, man. I'm never, ever going to consider, a rooting for another team. It's just something that I would never do. So that all comes back to Vinny being a New Jersey Devils fan.
That's the only sport. And I think it's helped me because doing the Blackhawks for the hockey news, I cover them. I look at it objectively. It's, I go be a fanboy for the Devils. I could never cover the Devils the way that I do the Blackhawks. There would be too much bias and heart involved. I think with the Blackhawks, I got a pretty good head on my shoulders. When it comes to the Bears, I just get irrationally angry. And the White Sox, I feel like I teeter-totter. But yeah, Aldo, I was kind of the same. I started with the Bears. Playing football was, I think, big to me. And then you want to watch it on TV, you're picking the local team. I had an out. I became obsessed with Tom Brady when I was a little kid. So once the Bears were done after week 16 back in the day, kids might remember the season ending after week 16 or week 17, 16 games. Then I would just start rooting for the Patriots in the playoffs. And then he went to Tampa, and I was like, I can't wait to root for Tampa and make everyone around me so angry. And that's exactly what happened. I did. But I never lost my love for the beloved in the process. So I wanted, when Tom Brady said the Bears were second on his list behind Tampa, that ate away at me inside that it didn't happen. That would have just been so awesome. It would have been so awesome. But
it really would have.
Football, you could tell stories, and that's what I like about it like a lot.
And I was going to say, it would have been so unlike the Bears to make a big move like that. And that's partly true. They would never for a quarterback, but they have for like Montez. No, Montez Sweat is not
Khalil Mack.
Big name, but Khalil Mack, right? Julius Peppers. They have made dramatic moves like that. But if they would have done it for Brady, I would have definitely applauded that whole thing. Let's win one for Virginia before she passes.
That was a Bears state of affairs not too long ago.
It sure
Remember
was.
at the time there was we could have had Tom Brady.
I wonder if Brady, he had to have thought in his mind though, like if I go to Chicago and I win a Super Bowl with the Bears, I'm already a legend. But now I'm like everybody. I'm like Michael Jordan now at that point.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Yes. Good
Who I am.
Part of me does use that decision of choosing Tampa in the last final minutes of it, though, make me wonder if his evaluation as an owner and being a part of football operations in Vegas, whether he's actually a part of them on paper or not. Well, he clearly evaluated that situation correctly because Tampa Bay had everything they need. They went 9-7 with Jameis Winston doing the 30 touchdown, 30 interception thing. Oh, they had Tom Brady. They magically go to the Super Bowl. They had the ingredients that they needed, and Tom recognized that. So we'll see how it works out for him in more of an executive/ownership role.
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be
while being bad at calling games. Love Tom, but he's clearly limited to what he's allowed to say.
Yeah.
Tooch, by the way, I booked Jeff Agris, the Chicago Sun-Times sports media reporter. So he's going to join us early June so we could talk about NFL football coverage and all those things TV related. That's a big part of what we like to do here on the show is just talk about television coverage because it's such an important part of pro football. I mean, I've always loved to watch hockey, basketball, and football and baseball through the eyes of the television networks. They were the ones setting the narrative. Those years where the Chicago Bulls won 6 NBA championships, those openings on NBC with Bob Costas saying, the Bulls are one win away from winning their blah, blah, blah. Set the narrative with the great John Tesh music playing behind it. And now it's coming back. NBA is coming back to NBC with the same music. So, and Michael Jordan has been hired as one of the analysts, so that's going to be tons of fun. But I just wanted to say that football and all major sports has always been filtered to me through what the major television networks have done. That's probably going to change more for people from Vinny and Jeff's generation, where they're going to be getting their information from so many different sources. You know, there's so much more material available than it was for Tucci and I when we were going to that newsstand on Cicero Avenue.
And then went straight to the back instead of reading the sports stuff anyway.
Exactly. City News? Was it called City News?
That's it. City News.
City News.
Were you wondering why there was a hole in the wall, Aldo? Was that a question you were wondering, or were you just peeking the whole way?
What is going on with this hole in the wall? Why is there somebody's fingers going like this?
Aldo took one good look at it and goes, "Nope, not big enough."
Oh God.
That's good stuff. City News on Cicero Avenue, right by Six Corners there.
That's Six Corners, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, you guys want to talk a little pop culture before we wrap this one up? I always like to find out from Vinny what he's been watching lately, him and his beautiful fiance.
Well, lately I've been a little dry. I know there was a cool Superman trailer that came out today that I still have to watch. Apparently they're going to kind of start that whole thing over again with the DC side of comic books. So we'll see if that ends up being cool like the Marvel ones were. Basically, since the beginning of April, it's been hockey. So I'll get back into my pop culture swing probably a little bit more once Gary McBettman hands it over to Connor McDitt. No, I'm kidding. I can only hope. So yeah, once hockey's over, we'll get fully back into the pop culture and I'll come back on and nerd out.
Vin, do you watch all the playoff games live?
Yeah.
Wow.
We come prepared on Bar Down Talking Hockey, and my articles are not written without fact. I try really hard. I try really hard to make sure that I'm on top of things. I'm not just some bum throwing together stuff. We like to we bring the smoke if there's going to be a fire. That made no sense. I didn't say I was smart. I said I watched the game.
It had a poetic feel to it, so I'm buying it. All right. What about you, Mr. Jeff Willis? Have you had any chance since the last time we talked? Just last week, I think it was. Have you seen anything that you want to recommend or tell people don't watch this because it's awful?
I don't know if I've watched anything new since then, really.
Music,
honestly, I remember. What's that?
Anything in the music world?
Oh, you know what? Not anything. I go through phases with music where I just listen to like certain things for a while. Like I'll listen to the same shit over and over again for a while, and then I'll listen to a playlist with some other shit over and over again. And again, it's like phases, but it's always like the same kind of stuff though for the most part. Mostly music from like the 70s and 80s and shit like that, like AC/DC, right. Like I've got the shirt on here, things like that. But I don't know. As far as shows, like I see Donald's over here talking about Andor season 2. I need to watch Andor, Donald. I still am kind of going through Star Wars. I've been watching them through. I don't know if I told you guys that last time, but I still haven't gotten through all of them yet because they're so long, and I only watch like an hour a night. So in any case, I love those movies, so I have been going through them again. But I do need to watch Andor, Donald. I have to look at that myself. But as far as like new stuff, I haven't seen anything new yet. Tucci, I want to know if you started anything new from Yellowstone yet, though. Any of the
not yet. Is that Andor wrapped too? Right, it's the last episode was
I believe so, yeah.
And now it's like at the point where it would be Rogue One, the movie, right? Or
is that actually true? That's amazing. I need to get back. I'm obsessed with Star Wars. I don't know how I didn't even mention it once. I need to go back and watch that. Well, I was going to crack a joke, although I actually saw this brand new movie. It's called The Empire Strikes Back. Never seen it.
I just watched it the other
day. Me too, actually. That's funny. I watched it on May the 4th be with you. Had to.
You saw Rogue One, though, Vinny, right? You saw
Rogue One. If you look at it just from a pure storytelling
the best one.
And movie making, if you ignore anything you like about Star Wars and just from the eyes of like a movie storytelling critic eyes, Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie yet.
Yep. Yeah, it's really good as a standalone.
Yep.
Tuch, what do you want to share with folks?
Yeah, I watched a couple movies. So the Accountant 2
Yeah,
is
how's
out in the
that?
theaters. I haven't seen it, but I watched Accountant 1.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty good. Ben Affleck is like an autistic accountant, and then the chick from Pitch Perfect plays as like, I don't know, love interest, I guess. Anna Kendrick.
Oh, I love her. She's great.
Oh yeah,
little
she's good
cutie,
looking. Yeah.
Oh,
and it was decent, man. John Bernthal's in it too, and John Lithgow. Pretty good cast. J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen The Accountant, pretty good movie.
What's it on?
I think I watched it on Prime. Yeah, Prime.
Okay.
Because now Bezos has fucking commercials. It's like, I remember getting annoyed. I'm like, God damn it, another I gotta go. I can go take a piss. But and then have you any of you guys seen Pitch Perfect?
A long
yes,
time ago.
I saw the first one.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Yeah, very good.
Excellent. But the other movie I saw was called Locked. And probably nobody's heard of it, but it's got Sir Anthony Hopkins and the guy who plays It from the Stephen King, whatever clown, the evil clown.
Tim Curry?
No, it's Bill Skarsgård.
Oh, yeah.
And he plays a guy that breaks into Anthony Hopkins' SUV, and Anthony Hopkins was so sick of people breaking into his car that he sets this trap where he can't escape. And he's stuck in there. He's tormenting him while he's trapped in the car. That's it's all right. It's not bad, but that's the storyline. I was wondering what Anthony Hopkins was up to.
Yeah. So this is a recent movie, huh?
Yeah, 2025. Yep.
Jeez. Okay. I thought.
How old is he now? He's got to be getting like super old by now.
Mid 80s.
80s. Yeah, mid 80s. I would guess. Yep.
God bless him. I saw something that I want to warn people not to watch because it was derivative. It was not very interesting. It's called Extraterritorial, and it's on Netflix. It's actually a Scandinavian film that's been dubbed over into English. And the dubbing isn't too bad, but the basic storyline premise is this former well-trained female assassin is with her daughter. They go to the consulate, and her daughter becomes missing. She's looking.
It's her son.
It's her son. Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah.
And she's looking throughout the entire consulate for him, and then everybody's like, "Yeah, no, we didn't see any kid come in with you." And it's that whole thing is like, "Am I going crazy? Or is this?" Anyway, we've seen the movie before. Jodie Foster did one on an airplane. There's been plenty of them. Right. This one brings nothing new, and after a while, the dubbing becomes kind of silly.
Asleep, Aldo.
Oh,
so I don't know what happened at the end. My wife and I were watching it too. It's like
Jodie Foster found. So stay away from that. And I just want
to. What's it called?
It's called extraterritorial, and the word means is that when there's a consulate, like let's say the French consulate is here in Chicago, that whatever happens inside that consulate is part of the laws of France, not the United States. Yep. And so that's what becomes the challenge for her in trying to find her child, is because there's not the same laws for
like
America.
In Germany or something, right? Germany, the U.S. consulate.
I don't know. I fell asleep too. So stay away from that. Now, our guy Aaron Mikulski recommended something called the Ethernaut, which he says it's a mini series from a Scandinavian country, and the premise is that snow has become contaminated, and so it takes place in the near future, and people who come into contact with snow, and if you're living in a Scandinavian country, it's going to happen, get this disease or something like that. He says it's 6 episodes. Every episode is better than the next, and then that the ending episode has a great twist ending. So if you don't mind watching a dubbed over, because it is in some Scandinavian language or subtitles, if you don't mind that, this might be a good one. I'm going to start it this weekend.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
it does sound pretty good.
Did you guys ever see The Langoliers? Cliff Victoria is recommending that from a Stephen King book.
I have not. There was an old one, Langoliers.
Yes. Yeah,
It's also
the effects were terrible, but it's a good story.
the Oakland Athletics catcher is named Langoliers too.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
Oh.
About that.
All right, let's close this episode of whatever we're calling this, Spare Their Souls, whatever. And let's go around the horn, and you guys can plug whatever you're working on. Vinny, what you got going?
First of all, thank you for sending out that link and allowing people in the Barroom Network to come on and say a couple words. It was very, very fun. I enjoyed it. I read the hockey news. I'm at Vinny Parisi on Twitter. I post every article. I do the Blackhawks pretty extensively when they hire a coach. I'll likely be at the press conference when they have him speak for the first time and ask him one of the annoying questions with the Pen and Mike Club. And then bar down every Thursday at noon. So very much active in the hockey community and especially football. Oh, Bears Wire too. Obviously working under the great Alyssa Barbieri, who we connected through Aldo to get me that job too. So yeah, love talking sports with the folks. I don't get paid to watch baseball anymore, which makes it more fun to watch.
That's right. And those of you who were fans of Southside Hitman, I understand the show is not coming back this season unless the White Sox start winning some games and start looking like a playoff contender.
7-6 in May.
They have been pretty good lately. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them to have a winning season because they're so unpredictable, that team. Yeah, you and I talked, Vinny, when you were doing that show. I was like, this roster looks so good, and they went out and shit all over the MLB schedule.
Lost 100 games. The one good year they had, it was clouded by Tony La Russa pulling back for swinging on 3-1.
Right, sleeping in the dugout.
Yeah.
Jeff,
I don't blame him for that. I would sleep too.
Yeah, exactly. Jeff, what's coming up Friday on the show?
We'll probably talk a little bit about, what's happened throughout camp. And Tim and I have been talking about, we want to dig a little bit more into like pop culture and music and stuff too on our show. So we'll probably do some of that on Friday.
Love it.
Spend a little bit extra time on that, maybe 20 minutes or so. But we'll talk about, current Bears stuff that's going on. We'll probably talk a little bit about the schedule. I'm sure Tim will want to throw his thoughts in on that as well. So not sure if we'll have a guest yet. At this point, it's pretty doubtful. So it'll probably just be me and Tim yapping ourselves.
I got a great idea. I think it's a great idea. So on Friday, you guys are doing your shows, and Tim is doing his show from his home with his lovely family and kids in the next room and so forth. You are in your pad there. I will send over a stripper who will give you a lap dance while you do the show so that we can see Tim's jealous and envious reaction while you're talking football with some girl giving you a lap dance. What do you think?
That would be hilarious.
I'll be locked in.
I'm not sure how that would go over with. I've got roommates in the house. I'm not sure how they'd feel about a stripper walking down the stairs into this room. It'd be pretty funny.
That would be funny. All right, so make sure you check out Jeff Friday at 7 p.m. Central, Willis Twin Towers. Tooch, what's going on? Give us a bet, something that we can win some money at, man. I got a big rehabilitation rehab bill coming at home here pretty soon.
I got Bare Their Souls, of course, working on that. And then Barfly Tailgate, I'm sure will come pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. By the way, if you have not seen the new open to Bare Their Souls, I'm going to play it for you real quick. Here it comes.
It's time for John's Bear State of Affairs. He got nothing but true bombs about the Bears. He tells it like it is and always has. And he brings it with a little put sass. No shit talking here, grab yourself a beer. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist, cause you're on his blacklist. Go fuck your fist. You gonna hear the bare truth right now.
So I'm working on this, and my wife and my nieces who's with us for a couple of days, they asked me, because I had the headphones on. Why are you laughing so much? So I told them, "Fuck your fist," and they were like, "What?" My wife was like, "What?" And yeah, so I'm working on the song, and the AI thing generated this line called "Fuck your fist," and I think it could take off T-shirts and stuff, and so they start cracking up and so forth. So the first week I played the song, nobody mentions "Fuck your fist," and I'm like, I'm so disappointed. I don't think we'll sell a single T-shirt now.
Send it to Obvious Shirts.
There
They'll
you
make you
go.
one. They'll make you one.
Go fuck your fist. Yeah, I think it could become a line, like Wild and
Aldo
Crazy.
actually heard that line. It's not from AI. He actually heard that line in the back of the magazine store back in
I was
the
going to say it's probably the title of a porno somewhere.
it was the H2 of one of the articles because he read it for articles, of course.
There you go. There you go. Now we're talking. Now we're
Oh boy. That's why we get the R rating of it.
Indeed.
Yeah. Last weekend, my wife and some of the other families took the girls fishing. They got
nice.
They caught their first fish.
Nice.
Jeez, your kids are beautiful.
Thank you. The girls. I gotta go back. Not this weekend, but the following weekend. We're laying my mom to rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be in town, my hometown, Naperville, Illinois. And get that's been hanging over me all a little bit,
I bet. Is that next week that's going to happen?
A week from Friday. Yeah,
okay.
Service. Yeah, Naperville.
I'll try to run up there.
Yeah, all right. I will send you the details,
please.
Yeah, and then I got. I'm hoping to get Barfly Tailgate. Maybe a little draft recap schedule show with the guys. So,
we miss you guys.
Sundays be returning, hopefully, and then working on Bears State of Affairs too, as well.
And fantastic job you do every single week on that show.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I want to thank Jeff and Vinny and Tooch and Greg Gabriel and Danny Shimon, all guests, co-hosts today, and this was a fun show. Thank you, Cliff Victoria, for the comments about how well we covered this Bear schedule release here. And of course, I couldn't do it without these great guys on the screen and those who were on before them. We will be back live with programming on Friday, Jeff. And if you are a fan of former White Sox player Chet Lemon, make sure you check out Mike North and Joe Mandel's eulogy on the Somebody Big Just Died program here on the Barroom Network. For the fellas, I don't have a close, do I? I forgot to do a video. Oh, but I went and got
play the Tooth song again. Play the Tooth song again. That's a big close.
All right, here it goes.
He told it like it is and always will. Listen next week to get an earful of whatever's happening with the Chicago Bears. It always happens here with John's State of Affairs. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist, cause you're on his blacklist. You just heard the bare truth right here and now. John gave it to you straight, cause he's got no sacred cow. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck